Welcome, everyone. This is Andres Restart. I am joined by my good friend Brandon, and tonight we're talking about Nintendo, as we tend to do. Recently, the channel has reached the milestone of 38,000 subscribers, so I figured, hey, why
Yay.
not? Let's kind of celebrate this milestone while talking about some of the exciting things that we've got in our minds as of late, like the Nintendo Switch 2, like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and this theorized Ocarina of Time remake. We're talking about it again. I want to kind of go over some thoughts I have with you guys on this one, because I think there's some interesting things to go over here. And I definitely want Brandon's kind of feedback on this, because I'm dying. I've made it. I got to 38K. I guess that's as far as I'm going to go, because I can't breathe right now.
You're an old man now.
Breathing aside, how are you, Brandon?
Fine. Trying to kill these damn flea. I need to go get some flea medication for my cat. Because, in past couple days, I've seen, a couple of fleas. It's not too bad right now, but I don't want it to get bad. So, I gotta go get some of that. Currently, I'm picking them out of my socks. Because that's where they like to hide. They're very hard to kill. Very hard. But otherwise, I've been doing good. I was outside for an hour, just soaking in the sun earlier. And then I was cooling down.
I'm sorry about your fleas
playing
and
games and stuff.
Heat problems.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot. I got I don't know. You might be able to hear it slightly in the background, but it's hot. All right, good. Because I don't have it pointed directly at me like I usually do. But I got that bitch on high. I don't usually have the air conditioner on high during the podcast, but boy, yeah, it's 100 degrees. Feels like it's 110. It's rough.
Yeah, it actually gets kind of hot in this room too. I turn on the AC, but I do have a fan back there I could turn on, but I didn't. Yeah, I'll just the AC will probably have me feeling fine soon. So
it's hard to have wind on you when you have a mic. You have to have a very specific
you don't want
to set it up, otherwise the wind gets all in the microphone.
Right.
Yeah, but I have this super inefficient AC, so it tries its best.
Yeah. You live in Texas where it's hot. I live in Florida where it's hot. So
yeah, we both live in very, very hot, very humid places.
We are in the thick of summer. So
yes, sir.
Yeah, the humidity is thick. So
yeah. At least the days last long. It's still very, very bright outside for me, and it's 7:30.
Well, I'm an hour later, so it's not so bright for me. But that said, what is bright is what we're going to be discussing tonight, because I think it's going to be a pretty fun time. Shout outs to those in the chat already. Tevin Allen, hello there. Connor, hello there. Brandon, you were there.
Yes, I was.
Anthony Nelson, hello. Sam Talks Game, good evening. Having Hope, hello. Mario, thank you for the congratulations. Anthony Smith, howdy do. Thank you, Having Hope, for the congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much, Anthony. Zeromancer, how's it going? Rico Lee, hey, Andres from Brandon, what's up? Congrats on 38K as well. Thank you. Excited for Switch 2, Prime 4, and potentially Ocarina of Time Remake 2. That's what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
Super Luigi Collin, thank you on the congratulations. EM of 52, thank you for the congratulations. Everyone, thank you for liking the stream. If you guys could share, like the stream, chat it up, that will help this stream reach a larger audience. I took a little bit of a longer break than usual this weekend. During the Direct craze, I was like, you know what? I'm not taking a break. I'm going to make a video every day. And I think I went out. I was like, I don't know what my streak was. I got to check. But I think I was on a 13, 14, 15-day streak of video. And I've tried to make some more, there are videos I make that are 8 to 12 minutes long, right? That's on the shorter end for me, right? But I've also tried to do some longer videos that are 20, 25, 30 plus minutes. And so those are basically 2 videos in one. So we were kind of on a bit of a run there. And then it was a friend's wedding. So the bachelor party was actually Wednesday evening, which is why I wasn't at Nate's podcast last week. But then, so that was the bachelor party, right? We were out late for the bachelor party. Then it was actually like a multicultural wedding, right? So my friend is Hindu, so they had like a Hindu celebration, and that was interesting because like I wore like a really interesting garb that I've never worn
Huh.
before for the celebration, and that was Friday night. But then there was also the traditional wedding reception and all Saturday, and there's the after parties for each of them. So
Mm.
in terms of like celebrating going out, there's a lot going on there, and I ended up being the case that Saturday and Sunday I did not put out a video. But Monday we were back at it. Today we're back at it. Put out a theory video for Echoes of Wisdom. So if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
curious on that, you haven't seen it, check it out. Talk about the Triforce. But tonight, we're gonna. Well, anyways, the reason I brought it up is just because, yeah, it took a little bit of break. Things are a little bit slow, but we had a little bit of a restart, a reset, and we're gonna hit another run here. So let's see what happens, because there are some interesting things I want to talk about over the next couple weeks. But anyways, let's just dive into the thick of things while people roll in. It's actually there's just this thing I decided to post on Twitter today. I just think it's worth discussing here. It's nothing
All right.
crazy, but I just was like, you know what? This keeps happening. It kind of bothers me. Let me say this. I'm going to say it here now in case someone's not aware of it either. It keeps happening. Brandon, do you have any idea what I'm referring to?
No.
All right. So on Twitter today, I posted this. PSA. Public service announcement. Metroid 4 is not Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Metroid 4 is the fourth 2D Metroid game called Metroid Fusion, which released in 2002 for Game Boy Advance. Excluding the Prime from the name changes a lot. If you can say Final Fantasy, you can say Metroid Prime. So I understand that some people might say Metroid just to kind of shorten up. But the fact of the matter is there's the 2D Metroid series. So when you say Metroid 4, you're saying Metroid Fusion. So
Yeah.
you got if you're gonna talk, if you want to shorten Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, call it Prime 4 or call it Beyond or call it Metroid Beyond, but don't call it Metroid 4. That's the one combination of words in the title that does not tell you what it is. So yes, the 2D Metroid games are just Metroid with a subtitle of some kind, or unless it's the original, and the 3D Metroid games, or rather the first-person Metroid games, are Metroid Prime. And I think that's probably, actually, maybe the better distinction is just to say every other Metroid game has Metroid, and all the first-person Metroid games have Prime in it. Because you think about some of these spin-off titles for the Metroid Prime series, you have Metroid Prime Federation Force, you have Metroid Prime Hunters. Those were in first person. Although, there was also Metroid Prime Pinball. That gets a little weird. But it's based off, the point is, it's all of the Prime games are based off the Prime continuity. And it does get a little messy because the Prime continuity is technically falls within the overall Metroid continuity, but they're kind of told separately, if that makes any sense. And going into Metroid Prime 4, I mean, we already have theories that, and evidence, solid evidence to suggest that Prime 4 Beyond takes place obviously after the original trilogy, but even after a Metroid game or two that took place after the Metroid Prime trilogy. So it gets a little weird, but the main point here, if you see like first-person gameplay, that's a Metroid Prime series game. If you see 2D gameplay, that is a Metroid game. It's kind of like Super Mario versus Super Mario Bros. If it's a Super Mario Bros. Game, it's a 2D Mario game. If it's Super Mario, then it's a 3D Mario game. Nintendo doesn't have any titling distinctions for the Zelda games. Each Zelda game has its name, and you see it, that's what it is. You know what it is. But yeah, just don't call Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Metroid 4, because that's Metroid Fusion. Two different things. Anyway, I don't think anyone disagrees with that. It's just something that people who aren't as familiar with the Metroid series may not be aware of. But I think it's now is a good time to jump into, well, let's call it I don't know. I mean, what do we talk about first, Brandon? Do we talk about Ocarina of Time? Do we talk about Metroid Prime 4? Do we talk about Switch 2? Because I think they're all really interesting topics. And I mean, I want to talk about all of them. What are you feeling? What should we do first? So should we put a poll for about a couple minutes while we check the chat to let the chat decide what we discuss first for the evening?
It could be interesting. I do feel like Switch 2 ties every kind of topic together. So maybe we should talk about that first. Because all the topics are just kind of related to Switch 2 in some way or another anyways.
Sure. Let's do that. Although you could make the argument that, I don't know. All right, I'll just you know what? I asked you.
Not officially
I asked you. I asked you. You gave me your opinion, so let's do that. All right. So let's talk about Switch 2. Now, is there anything like insane about Switch 2 news related happening right now? I wouldn't say insane in terms of news, right? Right. Where we're at right now is kind of like this interesting limbo, right? We're post direct. We don't have any major Nintendo games to worry about in the foreseeable future, yes, with Echoes of Wisdom, but we have this like couple months where all we have is NES Super World Championships Edition and NES Super Nintendo World Championships Edition, right? And we just got Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which apparently was actually a solid remaster. So, there was some negative previews, but the reviews have actually been quite positive on this remaster. So that's something interesting to discuss as well. But anyways, the point is we're in this kind of interesting limbo where there's nothing really major from Nintendo happening right now.
Yeah.
But there is a stop process. There's a debate on when we're going to see Switch 2 actually get revealed. And I want to get into that. But we do have some news because there was a translation from Nintendo's Q&A, and there may be a few other things that'll be coming out that we'll get into. But the big thing that everyone's kind of talking about right now is that Nintendo's president, Shuntaro Furukawa, was asked about how they'll handle scalpers, those kinds of people that whenever something comes out, they buy it, and all quantities are bought out and then sold for much higher prices elsewhere. So the general consumer can't get it at a normal price or can't find it at all. How is Nintendo going to combat that? The president was asked. His response basically was, well, we're just going to make a lot of them. So, the fact of the matter is, if you have a high quantity, then as long as there's quantity there, those who are buying extra, sure, you're buying extra, that's great. But if there are still Switch 2s readily available, you're not going to be able to sell them at an increased price if they're, still available in the stores at a normal price. So that would work if they can get the quantity going. And Nintendo did note that the semiconductor shortage that was causing them issues throughout the Switch generation after COVID and all, not an issue for Switch 2. They told us that. So that's good
it's not
news.
Really that much of an issue anymore in general, as much as it was anyways. It's much less.
Yeah. So that's good news. Something else that was mentioned is that they will look at each individual market and kind of look at other ways to combat scalping, right? Like, I'm sure maybe they should have like some sort of ticket system, right? Like one console per person or something to that effect. Like, I think you have to do something like that to combat scalping. I would imagine they do that, but they didn't say that specifically because I do think it depends on region and there are different.
For Switch, they did make me use a different credit card because I tried to pre-order two, one for me and one for my friend.
Really?
And and they were like, you can't. It's one per person. I'm like, but it's not for me. And they're like, we can't. We don't know that for sure. You have to go get some. And so I had to go get my parents' credit card and pay for it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I imagine they'll do at least that for in-store stuff.
For sure. Sorry to interrupt you, Brandon. I was just going to say, guys, if you could like the stream, super helpful. Let's get to over 100 people watching. We're in the 80s right now, which is solid considering I took a little bit of a break. But if we can get to 100, that would be wonderful. I mean, Brandon, are you worried that when Switch 2 does come out, whenever it does, we'll get into that in a moment. Are you worried that you're not going to be able to get your hands on this thing day one?
No. I'm not worried.
Okay.
I think that they're definitely going to have a lot of production. We've seen in some of their earnings reports throughout the years and I haven't checked on them, but I would imagine it's been pretty consistent. But a few years ago, that they were like really pushing a lot of like stock and stuff like for making consoles and things like what's supplies. I forgot the exact word they used. But that was like a big part of their spending, and I imagine that's kept up. And I mean, he said here they're going to make a lot of them, and I imagine that's just something that they're going to do. Something that interests me though is we haven't seen any leaks from production of this thing, so I assume it's not actually in production yet, but will go into production very, very soon, like full production.
Sure.
So I wonder if they will want to announce it like within the next month or two, like announce it when it starts production or around that same time, because they know it's gonna leak.
Yeah. Let me answer a quick question in the chat. Lloyd J Stubbs 93. Is it called Switch 2? We do not know yet. Switch 2 was just the nickname until we know what it's called. It's kind of like when we called Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild 2, because we didn't know what it was, right? And Nintendo referred to it as the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but we're not going to say that. Yeah. We're going to say Breath of the Wild 2, or
what they refer to Switch 2 as just their next generation console, I think.
Exactly. Right now, Nintendo refers to it as the successor to the Nintendo Switch, right? It's a very similar sort of energy. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I wouldn't mind if they call it Switch 2, just for the record, but I don't want to go down that road of conversation because we've done it a million times already. That's not what I want to get into tonight.
Yeah. But assuming that they are going to launch in March and they do want all this supply, production's got to start pretty soon, right? Within the next couple months. So yeah, either we're going to see it in a leak or we're going to see it officially, but we're going to see the Switch 2 pretty soon, I think.
I think it's very interesting you bring that up. Because this kind of goes into the conversation, like it's all kind of linked, right? Like you were talking about how the Switch 2 is linked to some of the topics we're going to be discussing tonight. Yes, but even just like there are different topics surrounding Switch 2, right? Like after the Nintendo Direct, there's a lot of people that kind of share this sentiment. I don't, but there's a lot of people that do feel that maybe this Direct is a sign that Nintendo isn't ready to transition quite yet. And so some people don't even think that the talk of a March 2025 release is when Switch 2 is going to happen. Now people are thinking, oh, maybe holiday 2025 or perhaps beyond. Because I think a lot of people are sort of expecting that we're going to get to this point where there won't be a good Direct, right? It's kind of like you could say that I was hyping up the Nintendo Direct, but I was just telling what I thought was going to happen, right? And I feel like, obviously, I'm not going to get everything right, but I feel like in terms of you like the typical like sort of like how close I am to getting it right, this is one of those directs where I thought my predictions were really good.
We got two bingos.
We got two bingo lines, right? Like, you know, the big highlights for me: 2D Zelda, Metroid Prime 4, a big Super Mario Party sequel specifically. That's what I thought we would get, not just like Superstars, but a Super Mario Party sequel, and then also, I thought we would get at least one remaster. I thought we would get a little bit more, like Metroid Prime 2. Obviously, not yet. But point is that we were pretty close, right? Like, but that's because we think that Nintendo is going to continue to come out with consistent content regardless. And so Nintendo is going to give us some good stuff for the holidays, especially after having kind of a lackluster first half. That was kind of a big part of my thinking going to my expectations for the Direct. And so, I mean, I think this is the one good Direct of the year. I don't think there's going to be another good Switch 1 Direct. Like, there might be a solid Switch 1 Direct Mini or something if they have Switch 2 stuff also. That's a little different, right? But anyway, but there is this debate right now, you know. People see Echoes of Wisdom, people see Mario and Luigi Brothership, people see Super Mario Party Jamboree, and they think that lineup tells us that we're not even close to a Switch 2 reveal. And maybe that means manufacturing still a ways out. But I'll tell you this, Brandon. I think it's interesting to bring it up because a thought crossed my mind recently, and I know of other people discussed in the past, but it's just something that's occurred to me recently that I kind of wish I mentioned in maybe yesterday's video. But if let's say they are going to hit the March 2025 timing, right? they should start manufacturing soon, if not already.
Oh, yeah.
And if they start manufacturing soon, guess what happens? The risk of leaks coming out increase.
Exponentially.
And so you might want to beat them to the chase and tell us what you got going on.
Yeah. I mean, when production starts, it's not about if a leak will happen. It's about when a leak will happen.
Remember the Tears of the Kingdom OLED that leaked like the last day of 2022? And we were like, oh, it's got to be fake. Yeah,
this can't be real.
And it was 100%
totally
real. It was real months later.
Yeah.
So, and that was just an OLED, right? Yeah. I would like to think Nintendo's going to try and beat them to the chase. You know, you see how Nintendo adjusted for the direct leaks, right? Like this direct was a pretty good surprise. Like, yeah, there were some third-party things that were leaked, but in terms of first-party stuff, none of it was really. Well, the Zelda thing was kind of leaked, but it was the big leakers didn't know squat.
Right.
So you know, Nintendo is trying to kind of close those things off. You would think that for their big new console, they'd want to be even more cautious about that.
Yeah, but they have less actual like influence over it because they're not the ones like on the development team. Those are their developers in house. Sure. Like this is third party.
You got to work with other companies to get the hardware ready. Yeah,
you got to work with a lot of different companies and a lot of different places, and it's just so many people that work there that have access to the information now instead of like maybe 100 people max one before per project.
Yeah, but Brandon, let me ask you. Right, going back to what I was talking about earlier about how there are some who think that after the direct, there's no way Switch 2 is coming out soon. Do you agree with that thinking in any way? Like, does this direct give you any sense of doubt the Switch 2 is coming out next March? Or does it make you double down or somewhere in the middle?
I mean, it doesn't really change my thinking too much. Like, I guess it kind of makes me a little bit more, like, feeling like it's going to be March. Just because the lineup we have. And I mean, you made a great point in your video comparing the 3DS and Wii U lineup in 2016 to what we're getting this year. And in terms of quantity, there's actually far more games, and a lot of them are in the same. Yeah, back then, and a lot of them are literally the same franchises, like the same game series as we're getting now. So there's a lot of similarities, and as you pointed out in your video, like they're not gonna just be like, oh, here's a 6 month to a year period where there's nothing happening for Switch that we can lead up to Switch 2. Like, no, they're not just gonna completely kill their momentum for no reason leading up to their console. They want to keep that hype going, and Switch 1's not gonna die the minute Switch 2 releases either, and it's definitely not gonna die months ahead of time. It's gonna be a year or two into the Switch 2's life before it really finally is over. At least a year.
At least I feel like 2 is the minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 3. Like the Switch is a lot healthier considering how late we are into the generation compared to the 3DS, right? And the 3DS still had 2 years of life into Switch's life. So, you know, I think Switch still has legs. I know there's a lot of conversation about, but Switch 1 has to beat PS2. I already think it's a foregone conclusion. Like, as long as Nintendo kind of keeps up their pace, it's gonna happen. Even if Switch were to come out, if Switch 2 were to launch this year, I still think Switch 1 is going to become a better seller than PS2. By the end of this fiscal year, if Nintendo is close, they're going to be right there. They're going to be a few million away. And if they push Switch with a price drop for a couple more years, even if it's at a dramatically reduced sales rate, which it's going to go down, it's going to hit that mark. So I'm not really concerned about that, but I also kind of feel like that's like a superficial sort of consideration. Like maybe Nintendo cares, but I don't know if they care so much that they're going to kind of hamper their overall business success to accomplish that, right? Like you're not going to delay the Switch 2 just to guarantee that Switch 1 hits 160 million. Like what you want to make sure is that you're in the green every year, right? Or as much of in the green as possible.
What they
So
really want to
yeah,
make sure is that the Switch 2 does as well or better, than the Switch 1. That's what they really
that would
want.
be a bigger success. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
if
that's a much bigger deal.
you know what I would trade.
That's what they're really looking for, I think.
I rather Nintendo have Switch only hit 150 million. I'm not. They may have passed that already, but let's
They're
hypothetically,
close.
right? Let's say Switch only gets 150 million systems sold. I rather them give up the possibility of hitting PS2 sales if it means that the Switch 2 also sells 150 million. That's a much better success than Switch 2 getting to 165 and like Switch 1 getting to 165 and then Switch 2 getting to 80, right? Like now, of course, that's just a hypothetical. The point is they just want to make sure they maximize sales potential across the board, not just for Switch 1.
Facts.
So, you know, I as you brought up what I highlighted yesterday, like you look at how Nintendo handled their software for 2016 for both Wii U and 3DS is actually a pretty significant quantity. And if you were to take the best games from both consoles and released it per month, you would have a game every month, and it would probably be considered a better year or at least a comparable year to what we're getting now.
Facts.
Just if assuming they were modern versions of those games, right? Like there was a new Mario and Luigi game, we're getting a new Mario and Luigi game, right? There's a new Paper Mario game. We got a remake of a Paper Mario game this time. There was the new Pokemon game, a new generation of Pokemon, which we don't have this year at all. There's nothing even close to that. So it's they had a very solid 2016, especially when you consider that 2017 was going to end up going down as one of their it's going to be in the conversation for maybe their best year ever in terms of like just killer apps, right? So we're in a very similar territory here. There's not really any reason to think that they can't do the same thing in 2025 because they've done it before. So I don't really think anything we've seen from the Direct tells us that. If anything, the Direct to me strengthens the notion of what we've been thinking. I don't think Metroid Prime 4 Beyond would be a 2025 title if it wasn't being saved as part of the Switch 2 push. I think if that was not in the cards, I think, for example, let's say Switch 2 wasn't going to come out till say November. I don't think Prime 4 would be saved till all the way then. I think they would have put it out this year. I think it would have been part of the holiday lineup.
Probably.
But instead, I think what they're doing is that they're going to have a cross-gen version. I'm not saying it's going to be a day one title. Maybe not. It could be, but maybe it's going to come out sometime in the first 9 months of the console alongside other really big games like a 3D Mario, maybe a new Mario Kart. There's other possibilities. We discussed some of them in the past. So what I saw from the Direct is, hey, everything that's kind of made by an outsourced team or not a big budget team, we had that this year, right? So, for example, Mario and Luigi Brothership is rumored to be getting developed by ILCA. That's a Nintendo partner.
Right.
Not Nintendo. They remade Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Solid remake. I know some people have their criticisms about it, but I mean, they just follow the blueprint.
Facts.
The blueprint's fine, right? Like, so they didn't add extra. People wanted new content, and I understand that. But the point is, they didn't like ruin the game, right? They did it fine, and we know that some of the Alpha Dream team is working on this. Nintendo's overseeing the project; they're going to do well. But it's an outsourced project, right? Echoes of Wisdom probably being made by Grezza. We don't know that for a fact, but that's another non-main Nintendo team working on this, right? Super Mario Party is being made by ND Cube, if I'm not mistaken. So, where are the big like Nintendo studios? What's Monolith Soft doing? We don't know, but this is what we do know. They are not releasing a game this year, which fits the pattern that I've been talking about all year. You look at the pattern of Monolith Soft releases, you get a new game, then you'll get some DLC, then there'll be a break, maybe a remaster in the next year, then a new game, DLC, maybe a break, right? And so that's where we're at now. This is the break year. What's coming out next year? I think we're getting a game from Monolith Soft next year, or at least announced next year for Switch 2. That's one of Nintendo's big studios. What's Retro Studios doing? We already know. It's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Even though we have job listings showing that they've been QA testing this game since March of 2023, it's coming out in 2025. What does that tell you? I've already made my point clear on that one. So, those are some of Nintendo's big studios, but what about the Mario Kart team? What about the 3D Mario team? What have they been doing all this time? We don't know.
We don't know.
It's been years. So the big teams are not putting out games in this year. If we saw a Mario Kart team project this year, if we saw a 3D Mario team project this year, if Retro Studios came out with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond this year, or if Monolith Soft announced a game this year, then I'd be like, hey, you know what? Maybe you're right about Switch 2 taking a little bit longer. But we're not. Their main teams are not coming out with games right now. They're coming out in 2025 or later because we don't know about them yet, right? So the games we're seeing right now, they're good games. But they're the kind of games you don't need a Switch 2 with 4K support or what have you to make you feel better about it. Like, you're going to be content playing it as is. The other games are the one game we know about that's coming out next year, actually two, that are kind of big deals. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Pokemon Legends ZA. Those are the two like big deal Nintendo games we do know about. They're coming out next year, right? Those are games that we might want to see running better on the Switch 2. I know there's a little bit more conversation for Pokemon, but I think the point is still understood, right? Interesting. Here's another interesting thing I've noticed. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is dated for January. They dated a game 7 months in advance. Go back to some prior Nintendo Directs. If anyone sees an exception, please let me know in the comments below. But I looked at last year's Nintendo Direct. Yeah, they gave us dates in June, but only for games coming out this year. They didn't date games for January. You know what? You know when you date games for January? In the September Direct. They didn't do that. They did it in June. To me, that's very curious. To me, that's like, does that mean they're not going to have their typical Direct in September where they date the beginning of the year games? I think where we're headed is that, Switch 2 is definitely coming out in March. And I think we're going to have to see an announcement, like details on it this year. Nintendo's told us that we're getting used by the end of the fiscal year, but I think that's just a very vague thing. Like, we're getting it sooner than that. My prediction, and I do feel a little bit anxious about this one. I'm not saying I know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I am kind of thinking Nintendo's going to show off Switch 2. Brandon, call me crazy. I'm saying August.
Oh,
I'm saying
you're
August.
absolutely off your no.
I'm off my rocker.
I think it's August too.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's August?
Because I think they're going to show something very, very soon. As I said, they want to start production. They want to get ahead of the leaks. And also, I think there will be like a Switch 1 mini direct in September, because we do know Donkey Kong date in January, but I believe that's the only game that's dated for next year.
Yep.
So we do need a few more in the beginning of the maybe one more in January and one in February, maybe one in March. Lead up to that.
Or February is the drought before the Switch 2.
Yeah, that could also be the case. Or March.
I still think they're going to still announce
slow.
Switch 1 games at some point.
Yeah.
But I do think that the rate of release is going to slow down once Switch 2 comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's debatably already slowing down, but it's subtle. Okay. Yeah. So my thinking, right, is that one, the manufacturing thing, but also Tokyo Game Show is in September. Gamescom's at the end of August, if I'm not mistaken. And I think, from what we understand, there's been a lot of different like insiders that have suggested that third-party support's gonna be very strong on Switch 2. And so I think with that in mind, Nintendo's gonna want to at least get the name out, like literally, like Switch, whatever it's actually called, the Switch 2, get the name out there, put out that initial teaser at least. So then third parties are now at liberty to start just like name dropping the console in their announcement trailers and such. I mean, and doing that before Gamescom, I think it would be beneficial for that reason.
The fact, well, I mean, what we think we know about what the Switch 2 plans is for it to release this year, right? Which means third parties were probably already ready with trailers. and those do take a lot of time and effort and money to make. So they're probably not wanting to waste that time, and they want to show it off like this year. When it makes more sense.
It's interesting you bring that up, Brandon, because I've been wanting to ask you, and I might do a video on this in a couple of days. Hint, hint. But there has been this discussion. There's been a rumor that Switch 2 was never going to come out in 2024. That it was always a March 2025 release. Now, what's interesting about that is that regardless, it still supports the notion that Switch 2 comes out in March, which is fine with me, right? But if that rumor is true, then your point wouldn't hold. I'm not saying I disagree, just for the record, right? I agree with you, but like, what do you make of that idea, though? That this idea that the Switch 2 was never going to come out in 2024.
I mean, you spoke about a theory where it's like, because we heard that developers were told to get stuff ready by the end of this year, but that might have just been to get things ahead of time, right? That was one theory. But even if that is the case, that still means they were ready to show off stuff this year, and that's what they were planning to do. So yeah, it doesn't really matter either way for this specifically if you go with that line of thinking. Maybe there's some other theories that are different, but that's the main one that I've heard.
Yeah, I'll say that I think the reason why this rumor might be coming out, assuming it's not just, bogus baloney bollocks, right? Is because maybe some devs were told, hey, it's coming out in March 2025, but not every dev was told about the initial release date. Because as we get closer to the actual release date, more and more devs are going to be welcome to the party of working on Switch 2, right?
Right.
And so for some people, they may never have had a holiday 2024 release timing because they weren't working on it until that change happened. So I think that's a possibility why the rumor exists, assuming it's based off anything tangible. I just find it hard to believe that every reputable news site out there that said they heard, they spoke to their different sources that it was supposed to come out holiday 2024. Like, some even suggesting potentially a little bit sooner. I find it hard to believe that all of them would just be completely wrong. That would be suggesting like a mass conspiracy.
Right.
And listen, I love my conspiracy theories. I love doing the theorizing and going deep and perhaps going too far, but I just don't think that's believable. Especially when we have seen a lot of these reputable sites get things correct that were clearly a demonstration of having sources that had good info, right? Not just, good prediction. Like there's a difference. Like you don't predict Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, you are told Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So, I would say the same would apply to a 2D top-down Zelda with a playable Princess Zelda. Although that one maybe would have been somewhat predictable because I did think 2D Zelda made sense this year, and we do have the Anuma interviews suggesting 2D Zelda, like not 2D, but a Zelda playable in the future could happen. So maybe you could connect the dots there. But anyways, yeah, I think the rumor is probably based on truth. Now the question is, do we see a delay? Because that's always possible. But I think, assuming the rumor is true, it's already been delayed.
Right. It should be a second delay, assuming the first delay happened.
Right. And to your point, and I like that you brought it up, for some companies, they may have already been, supposedly they were preparing for a holiday launch, right?
Right.
And then, they would have wanted reveals to happen perhaps already. Perhaps they would have been planned for this summer.
Right.
Typically, holiday releases, they would have been announced by this point already. So how much longer are they going to hold off announcing those projects? Probably not a lot longer. So I do think it suggests that we should see some third-party announcements start happening somewhere between August and October. Yeah. And I feel like we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
October is like the later, part of that window, but
Right.
yeah, I'm leaning August because I'm a crazy man. So actually, let's see what everyone in the chat thinks. When is the Switch 2 reveal happening? August, you are onto something. October, because that's how they handled NX. Oh, I don't have enough.
Man, you're forcing them to not only choose a date, but also agree with the reason for the date. That's crazy.
Right? You know what? I should probably make it simpler. You're right. That's like, I don't know what that is, but it's manipulative. I'm sorry.
Some sort of fallacy, I'm sure.
I didn't mean to be a bad person. March. Never. I like how
you could put August, September, October, and then just put like after then as the fourth option.
Sure. All right, that's better. That makes more sense. August, September, October, never. October, after. Okay. Here we go. Let's see what everyone thinks. We'll be coming back to the chat soon. I see there's a couple super chats and some ads, so I'll be getting to that. But Brandon, how excited are you for this Switch 2 reveal? Like when it does happen, whenever it happens,
bro. 15 out of 10, 100 out of 10. The most hyped thing that Nintendo could do is announce this next year. I love tech. I love hardware. I love seeing what hardware can do. This is going to be super powerful, but it's also going to be restrained, which is why the Switch is one of my favorite things to look at for like what it can do in games, because it can do a lot, but it also has a lot of restraints, and this is going to be the same. And I love that kind of stuff almost more than I love playing games. Is just learning how they work and like seeing them, seeing what these type of hardware can do. So that is the most exciting thing Nintendo could ever do, more than announce literally any game, is announce this new hardware. That's all I want to see.
Okay.
I'm a bit of a tech enthusiast.
I mean, I'm excited for it all. I'm excited to see the gimmicks. I'm excited to see the horsepower boost. I'm excited to see the games. You know,
games like, too, for sure.
The games to me are the most exciting part. Even if they don't like confirm anything, like if they handled exactly the way they handled the Switch 1 teaser, where it's just like a 3.5 minute trailer, and so technically nothing's confirmed, but you pretty much know, right? Like I think that. Like just seeing like 10 seconds of Mario footage, 10 seconds of Molotof's next game, right? Or seeing maybe 15, 20 seconds of like Metroid Prime 4 running on a more powerful system. Like,
I mean, the games are what showcase the hardware. So of course, I'm interested in seeing the games because that's how you see what the hardware can do.
Absolutely. Right now, Brandon, I'm very upset. I'm looking at the poll, and most people do not at all agree with our August thinking. Most people think we're crazy.
I mean, if to be fair, having a little direct mini in September or a partner showcase and then having the reveal in October kind of makes sense. That way you don't have the reveal and then another Switch 1 focused thing, because I don't think they're going to have the reveal and then in September be like, now we're talking about Switch 1 and 2. Like I don't think that's gonna happen. So maybe we should be thinking October.
They would at that point they would be completely giving up on not announcing anything at Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show or
That is true.
that October will be ahead of all those events where third-party games could have more of an audience.
There's
Granted,
other events though, and they can do their own thing.
yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing is that the third-party companies can still have their announcements. They just won't announce that it's coming to Switch 2. They'll just talk about the games more. They just won't mention the Switch 2 part.
Right.
That's it.
They could talk at the Game Awards. Got a lot of trailers at the Game Awards.
Yeah, they could. That's true. That might be expensive though.
I mean, third parties are gonna have those kind of trailers in there anyways. So why not throw some Switch 2 ones in there?
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna happen if it gets revealed before the event anyways. So
yeah. But let's check in with the chat. Let's see how everyone feels. So going to my super chats here, Leo Aguiar, thank you for the super chat. Crazy how Metroid Prime and Fusion released one day apart in 2002. Both amazing games. Yeah, I mean, back then Nintendo kind of treated them as two. I mean, they were two separate platforms. You had the Game Boy Advance, you had the GameCube. And so, yeah, Nintendo had a lot of games coming out for each platform, and they kind of had to support them at the same time, you know, which is
interesting for
why
somebody who owns
spread
both.
so well thin. What?
It's interesting for somebody who owns both, right? Because they would never do that today with the Switch. They would never release a 2D Metroid and a 3D Metroid like one day apart, unless they were like a remaster or something.
If you had you could use both games to unlock the Fusion suit, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
Don't remember exactly how it worked. How to unlock Fusion suit. I don't think Fusion suit's in Prime Remastered, which is kind of it's a little sad. It's possible to knock the Metroid Fusion suit for Metroid Fusion for Samus to wear in Metroid Prime. Once you complete Metroid Prime, simply connect the two games using the Nintendo Game Boy Advance cable. The Fusion suit changes the appearance of Samus, but her abilities stay the same. All right, so that's what you gotta do. Yep. It's interesting. Yeah. Next super chat here from Nintendo Prime. Thank you for the congratulations, buddy. Nate says 38K. Congrats. Thank you. By the way, happy belated. So his birthday just happened.
Nice.
Yeah.
Happy belated as well.
Yeah. So let's look through the chat here because I got several ats. Connor added me earlier. Do you think for Switch 2 that the Kirby game that Hal is working on could be a sequel for Kirby the Forgotten Land, having new abilities upgraded to new playable characters? So this was actually also one of my predictions. It doesn't count as a prediction because it's a prediction by omission, right? I didn't think we would see a Kirby game in the Direct, even though I know it makes sense because Kirby happens all the time. Because I think that they're all hands on deck working on a sequel to Forgotten Land for Switch 2, which I think we'll see next year. Call me crazy.
I thought we might see a Kirby game because I thought they might have maybe
like
one of their smaller teams or
thing.
Yeah, something that didn't really take much work or something they might be able to outsource. But yeah, I definitely think the main team is harder to work on that Forgotten Land 2, but it probably won't be called that.
Bro, I bet Forgotten, whatever it is, right? It's not. I don't even think it'll be like a direct sequel story wise. I think it's just going to be
probably not
that style of Kirby game, but even more powerful hardware. I think that's going to be
60 FPS this time. That'd be nice. I believe Kirby and the Forgotten Land is 30.
That should be doable. Yeah, if it's a Switch 2 game, yeah. AB James asking, wasn't there a code name for a new Switch Sports Resort type game that could be ready to go next year for Switch 2? Yes.
I don't know if it was specifically a Switch Sports Resort. I think it was just like some kind of follow-up to Switch Sports, right?
Yeah. So
but I'm hoping for a Switch Sports Resort type game.
I mean, it makes sense to have something. It would be an ideal game to have out in the first year Switch 2, something like that, whatever they call it.
Be better than a 1-2 Switch was.
And it might it might have somewhat explain why they decided to randomly add basketball as a DLC update for Switch Sports for this summer. It's kind of interesting to think of it in that way. It's like, hey, remember this, right? Although I am curious though, because I wonder if there's a small possibility that the code name was just for the DLC update to Switch Sports, which could, like, the code name might just be this basketball update. I'm not saying that's what it is, right? Like, based on, I have to double check the names exactly, but it seemed like basically some kind of actual full follow up, right? Not like just in addition to this to Switch Sports. But I'm just putting it out there as a possibility. That said, we need some kind of game like that in the first year of Switch 2. So if the first year of Switch 2 is next year, kind of makes sense. And updating Switch Sports 1 this year to kind of maybe, remind people, that might be kind of like some smart marketing there.
Right. Maybe it's not even a full new game. Maybe it's like
an enhancement with new content, a deluxe.
Yeah.
Switch Sports Deluxe.
Yeah, like maybe it has like a bunch of different sports and things and activities, and maybe it is like Switch Sports Resort, but it's built off the basis of Switch Sports. So if you own Switch Sports, it's just a DLC that you can buy, but otherwise you can buy like the full version, like in stores where there's like the Switch 2 one, right?
Maybe.
But otherwise, if you already have the Switch 1 version, you just have to upgrade to the DLC on the Switch 2.
I'm a little concerned. Buy the whole game again. Yeah, my thing about that is I wonder how well that would sell, right? Like, if it's only like a half a new game.
Being treated as a new game for most people, it's just there'd be some of the same content. So, if you mean, it was the same in Switch Sports Resort. There were a lot of the same modes in that game.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. Would this feel more like a Mario Kart Deluxe, or would it feel more like a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate?
It'd be more like Smash Bros. Ultimate, I guess.
Okay.
Essentially, I think they would they would like triple the amount of content that the game had, and like that's how much new content there would be. But then also there'd be the base content still.
I'm okay with the base content being in there as well. Right, yeah. But I think they need to add.
There's a whole other game's worth
it
of
needs
stuff
to be branded.
Well.
It needs to be branded as a new game.
No,
if that branded as a new game, I think you're basically telling all the people who bought Switch Sports on Switch to not really worry that much about this sequel on Switch 2. I think you need to brand it as a new game.
No, the point is
everyone who bought it will want to buy this one too.
Listen. The point is it's branded as a new game for everybody who doesn't own Switch Sports. But if you own Switch Sports, you don't have to buy a game that already has Switch Sports in it. You just buy the DLC.
No.
So everybody who has Switch Sports buys this DLC.
Yeah. No.
Why no?
I don't think that's... I mean, maybe you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't agree. I just don't think that's a good idea.
Why is it not a good idea?
So, because you're then... at that point, you're telling people that it's... You might be trying to sell a lot of people on the new content, but if you're telling people it's basically just an expansion that you can pay for if you have the base game, I think it's not sending the best message in terms of, hey, here's a whole new game, buy this, right? Like people who don't have it,
if you don't have it, then you buy the new game. If you have it, then obviously you wouldn't buy it. You would just upgrade to that version. You don't want the people who own Switch Sports to buy this game. You want them to buy a DLC, an expensive DLC for the game to make it that game. And then everybody who doesn't own it buys that game.
How much is this game going to cost?
$60.
Which would be $20 more than I think the base Switch Sports cost on Switch.
Well, then it'd be $40. I don't know. Why is that? What does that even have to do with anything?
I mean, how much is the upgrade cost?
Brother, I'm not the one in charge of making the money.
Right. I think the ones in charge are going to do like, hey, make a new game. Maybe it has some of the old content in there as a base, and it's enhanced and remastered and has new twists and turns and modes and tricks and stuff. But you're gonna buy it for $70. That's what's gonna happen. That's what I think.
Probably.
But we'll see, we'll see. Cause I mean, to your point, at least, right. There's been a lot of conversation that there are going to be games that you have on Switch you can purchase like a graphics patch for, and it looks better on Switch too. But that's just like graphics and stuff. Now you're talking about getting new content, and I don't know. On the flip side, right? I've made the same argument for Smash Ultimate. Give us a Volume 3. Well,
I think that would work very well with
we
Smash
pay
Ultimate.
for a graphics patch, we get Volume 3, but they also release a Smash Ultimate Deluxe version for those that want that.
Right.
So maybe I'm just biased for Smash Brothers. I don't know. I
think either way.
I think it's gonna be a sequel though. Like if we're getting anything, right? I think it's gonna be a sequel. Like if you just want me to tell you my gut feeling, I think Nintendo would prefer just to make a new game. It's not like this is it's not like Switch Sports is a big game to begin with, right?
No.
So I think it's kind of more almost like you look at Nintendo's different sports titles. You look at like the Mario Party games. We see Mario Party games every 3 years? Sooner.
Yes.
Even. Yeah, every 3 years. I think that it makes sense because Switch Sports came out 2022, 2025. Like that's reasonable. Now, obviously, they've made this basketball stuff. They have the golf stuff. So, it is being somewhat treated like this continually evolving game, but barely.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a caveat, but maybe we'll find out. And
I think it could go either way, but I could definitely see them just being like, nah, you're gonna pay full price. I don't think it would be $70 if Switch Sports was $40. It'll probably be like $50 then. But yeah, they probably will make a whole new package.
If they make a Switch Sports Resort that has completely different games, maybe that's even a better idea. Like have them feel separate, right? So you'll want to buy both.
Right. I mean, it didn't work for them with Switch Sports Resort when they did that. So I'm curious if they would try it again. Or yes, Wii Sports Resort.
Well, it did sell well. Wii Sports Resort sales were not bad.
No, they just weren't like crazy amazing.
All right, well, all right, Brandon. Do you want me to tell you what the worldwide sales for Wii Sports Resort were?
Yeah.
33.14 million.
That's decent. That's not crazy amazing.
It's the third best selling Wii game. I mean, that's
the
pretty
first
good,
one
Brandon.
just Wii Sports?
The first one was Wii Sports, but it was sold with the console.
Yeah.
So it's really.
I just mean compared to Wii Sports, like you would think since everybody knew Wii Sports that like most people would buy it, but they didn't.
Everyone who bought a Wii, almost everyone who bought a Wii automatically bought Wii Sports because it was bundled with the console. Like
yeah, but it like sold the system. Like people bought the Wii for Switch Sports. It was the most popular thing. It was the biggest reason people bought the
Wii Sports. I know they're interchangeable.
Just assume I mean Wii Sports, man.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm talking about Wii Sports here. When I say Switch Sports sold the Wii, obviously I mean Wii Sports.
I think you have to put an asterisk on Wii Sports sales because they were bundled with Wiis. I'm not saying yes.
My point is, I think Switch Sport or fucking Wii Sports is the main reason the Wii sold so many copies.
I think it was obviously a very big reason why we did so well, but it's also hard to kind of quantify how big of a deal it was when people were also buying Wiis for a variety of other games, right? And Wii Sports just so happened to be part of the package. And I would say, like, no matter how you spin it, 33 million copies for Wii Sports Resort is really freaking good. It's the third best-selling Wii game under Mario Kart Wii and Wii Sports, which, again, you have to put an asterisk under because it was bundled with the Wii. And I'm not saying that Wii Sports shouldn't be considered the best-selling game.
Nearly the kind of sales for games that the Switch has. So I guess I'm not taking that into consideration.
I mean, even if you did, like the Wii Sports Resort,
because on Switch, like 33 million is pretty good, but it's not like.
It's not. Meanwhile, Switch Sports.
Why do you think I'm angry?
I don't really know. I think we're just having a combative discussion, and that's it. I don't know. Are you angry?
No.
Yeah, I think
No.
we're fine. By the way, Switch Sports has sold over 13 million copies, which is really good, Brandon.
13 million? Nah, that's not that great. If the game was actually good, it could have hit. It could have hit way more many copies
Oh,
than that.
I just
13 million for Switch Sports, bruh. You telling me you don't think an actually like really good Switch Sports would have sold 30 million plus?
No.
You don't think that?
No, because not that
You're
many games
delusional.
get. Am I? All right, how many games
Delusional.
have hit? How many games have hit 30 million in sales on Switch?
Probably less than 10.
You're right. Less than
We're also
5.
talking the follow up to Wii Sports on Switch. Like if that had been
Years
good,
later.
yeah. But everybody know it's like the biggest nostalgia thing for people who are growing up right now who just now have money who are buying a Switch. Like the biggest demographic for Switch are people who grew up with the Wii and Wii Sports. So obviously, if they made a great follow up to that game, it would have sold in the tens, in the multiple tens of millions, not just what did you say, 12 to 15?
So let's also remind ourselves, Switch Sports continues to sell. It has evergreen sales, right? It didn't hit 13 million immediately. It continues to go up, and it came out April 2022, right? There aren't that many games that have come out after like Switch Sports that have outperformed it. There's just like Mario Wonder and Tears of the Kingdom, and I guess Legends Arceus. Nope, that came out before. Like I'm looking at the list, like there's nothing else that's out that I'll have to double check how much Mario Kart Deluxe has been selling because it continues to sell. Anyway, what are we even arguing about?
I don't know. That I was about to say. I'm not even sure what point I'm trying to make anymore.
I don't.
We should probably just move on.
I don't know. I think I just took issue with you trying to say the Switch Sports, that Wii Sports. Damn it,
Jesus Christ!
I think I took issue with you saying that Wii Sports was not that great of a seller.
Wii Sports Resort, you mean?
Yes, Wii Sports Resort. I think selling 33 million is pretty insane. And then I also took issue with you saying that 13 million for Switch Sports is bad. I think it's really good.
That one I agree with. Still, the 33 mil. I take the Wii Sports Resort back because I had heard people say it didn't sell that well, but I didn't actually know the numbers,
Yeah.
So I shouldn't have even said that because I didn't know it. I did not have the information. I'll take that one back, but I do agree. I do still think, and AB James, I feel like agrees with me because he said Ring Fit Adventure new IP sold more than Switch Sports, which is crazy.
What sold better than Switch Sports?
Ring Fit Adventure.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
I'm surprised.
Well, so I remember having arguments with people about both Ring Fit Adventure.
Well, I guess I'm not because of the quality of the two games, but when you take the IPs into account, I'm very shocked.
Well, okay, no, hold on a second, because I think this is really unfair, right? Let me explain. First off, what I wanted to say, I had arguments with people about both Ring Fit Adventure and Switch Sports. I told people that both these games would continue to sell, and they have both continued to sell. They are both evergreen titles. What that means is that they continue to sell as time goes on. And so, when you have that in mind, you have to take into consideration when these games came out, because they continue to sell. Ring Fit Adventure came out October 2019. It's at 15.38 million. Switch Sports came out April 2022. There's a few years of a difference there. It's at 13.11 million. It's not that far behind, and it's a lot newer. If we go 3 years from now, where are they going to be at? I wouldn't be surprised if Switch Sports passes Ring Fit Adventure.
Oh, yeah, probably. But it still probably won't hit like 30
And by the way,
unless they continue to support it.
Currently, Ring Fit Adventure is the 11th best-selling game on Switch. That's really good. Like Ring Fit, like
Yeah, but I'm just saying I would have expected Switch Sports to do really, really well. Like really well.
Has outsold Splatoon 3.
My other point is consider how well Switch Sports has sold, and consider how poorly it reviewed, and how much nobody gives a shit about it except playing it at their freaking parents' house once in a Blue Moon.
But that's what I do, and I like
Yeah.
it for what it is. Like,
Yeah,
they
but it
wa-
could have been an actually like great game, like Switch Sports Resort. Instead it's like barely more content. In fact,
all
in
right,
some ways, it's less content than the original Wii Sports.
all
It's a
right.
bad
So
game.
I just don't agree with you. But there's a few things to note here. Switch Sports on Metacritic is a 72, which is not a bad game. It's not considered a great game, but it's not a bad game, right? However, its main criticism was a lack of content. Since
Yeah.
release, they added golf, which I really enjoy. That's what I play the most. And they're now adding basketball, which
Doesn't matter because the other modes are what they need to add more to each individual mode, not add more modes.
I
Each mode
recognize
sucks on their own, so adding more modes doesn't really help.
Hold on a second. I don't disagree that there should be more modes, right? I agree with that.
No, there should be more in the modes.
Right. Well, that's what okay, you're defining the games as a mode. I meant like within each game there should be more to do.
Yeah.
Same
That's
difference.
we're saying the
semantics. Same thing. Yeah. Or diction, whatever. Anyways, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. We'll see what they do. I don't know when I don't think Nintendo, like when it comes to their sports games, they're not trying to get it to review 9 out of 10. I think 72 is a little low, right? I'll concede that. But I think the ultimate effect is that people like it and people are buying it. Because that's literally what's happening. But I do want more. Now, what I'm curious on, I want to look at the Metacritic scores for Switch Sports. Damn it, Wii Sports.
I mean, if it had reviewed as like an 85, I think it would have sold a lot better, though. Like, it didn't review very well, and it sold really well, right? On name alone. So if it was actually a pretty damn good game, I think it would have sold really, really well.
What do you think Wii Sports Resort got on Metacritic?
I don't know.
Say, give me a number. Give me a number.
Not justified. A non-justified number. I don't care because the game is amazing.
Just give me a
Switch
number.
Sports isn't.
Give me
70.
a number. No, 80. It serves your argument.
Ah, there we go. Okay. It's just the way you were saying it made me think that you were trying to fucking.
I mean, yeah, I have to keep you, keep you on your toes.
I'm like, maybe the Metacritic score is lower than it should be.
I love Wii Sports Resort. It had basketball.
It deserved better than an 80.
It had sword fighting, which Switch Sports have. I miss the archery. I loved walking around the island, flying around the island. The wave racing, which I did more.
The way everything was connected was the best part. It's like you're not just in these like separate, like you really feel like you're in like one map, like all the time, because every mini game's a different location and it's very distinct. And there's like a reason for it to be there on the island at that place. Yeah, I just love that about it.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if there is a sequel, it's really freaking good, and they do add more to each sport. But regardless, the series sells well. So
yes, it does.
Yeah. Anyways,
it could sell better.
Yeah, that was a massive tangent. So moving
that was ridiculous.
Yeah. That was good though. I think we had a good discussion on that. Yeah.
Some things I conceded. There's some things I think you didn't concede, but I still feel like I won in my mind.
Well, what would I not concede? What would you?
No, we're not going to continue this. We're not going to continue this.
I think that. Oh, okay. I'll say that. I mean, I don't know, because the thing is, like, it still sold well. So I don't know how you quantify. I think I do take some issue with. Like those kinds of games, I don't know how much review scores really matter. I guess is what the point I'm trying to make. So had it had an 80, I don't know if Switch Sports
I would have bought it. I didn't buy it because it didn't review well.
Oh, maybe there's something to maybe there's something to that. It still sold really well despite that, though, which is interesting.
Yes, it's like
we'll
Pokemon. I also think Pokemon could sell a lot better if the games are really high polished, though. I think they could be 30-40 million sellers instead of 10,
like
20.
It's interesting because like it's how do you know, right? Like you don't know until you know. Like there are games that have such great critical acclaim and don't sell shit. Metroid Prime Remastered was the highest reviewed games of the generation. Didn't sell shit. Like,
yeah, but if it has everything that Pokemon has to make it sell, the brand, the marketing, all those things that make Pokemon sell, the recognition, and it has quality, I think you have to assume that it will sell better, at least a little bit.
I think
Right?
there are just
Because there's
some
definitely
games.
people who aren't gonna buy it because they look at the game, they're like, it has everything I want, but the quality isn't there. Like me. Like there's gotta be more than it's not just me who looks at the games and goes, that quality's unacceptable. I'm not gonna buy this.
I'm not gonna sit here and act like reviews don't matter. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I think there are some series that most people already know they want it. They're not looking at reviews for it. Pokemon and the sports series come to mind.
Right.
That
But
said,
maybe there's a few more
it-
million copies that could be sold. Maybe it's 1 million. Maybe it's
Maybe-
5. Maybe it's 10. I don't know.
it's
But there's some amount of
500,000
copies.
I don't know. I mean,
Right.
yeah,
There's
obviously,
some amount of copies more.
I guess. I just wonder how much it matters. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's hard,
I'd
it's hard to
hope.
figure out.
I'd like to think it matters because I'd like to think that most people aren't just diehard Pokemon fans who will take anything, and that's a relatively small subset of people compared to like everybody who lives, but and plays games. But who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get to the chat. There's a lot I want to catch up on. There's still a
Thanks.
lot more to talk about. So,
Thanks.
Tony to Expert. I was thinking Switch 2 would be August, but that seems like Pokemon Presents month, and Brazil says it will have an Indie World. Well, Indie Worlds happen all the time. But Pokemon Presents in August would be interesting. We need to learn more about Legends ZA. I've been wondering about that one. Yeah, and also I'm curious. Like, do we see Pokemon Legends ZA gameplay before Switch 2 is even part of Switch 2 marketing at all?
It's interesting. I could feel it going both ways. I feel that they need, however, to show off Switch 1 footage because if they only show off Switch 2, then I feel like that could lead people to think either that the game is much more polished, depending on what the state the Switch 1 game is or not, or maybe the Switch 1 game is fine. Maybe they took the time to really make the Switch 1 game version good, and not showing that off might lead people to think that version isn't going to be good, and therefore aren't going to pre-order the game until the game comes out and reviews come out.
Maybe you want to show off the Switch 1 version first.
Right.
Yeah.
They could even have a Pokemon Presents this month.
Yeah, I mean, normally they have it. They have it in June or before. I gotta look at the history of it, but
I don't know if they've done one in July, but I don't see why they couldn't. It's not that far, separated from June. And who knows what their plans might have been different when the Switch 2 reveal might have been different. Who knows, what's all shifted around.
It's a little tricky looking these things up because they used to be called Pokemon Directs.
Facts. Now they're Pokemon Presents most of the time.
Yeah,
I think.
but I think I found this website that kind of compiles both of them. Here, I'll share it with you guys real quick because I just want to look at the history of
Put it on the big
their presentations. Right. Yeah. So this is a Bulbapedia. It looks like they kind of compiled just different things. Like there was a Go conference here. Right. So typical, Pokemon Day thing. That's fine. Pokemon Direct in June 2017. I remember that. 2018, they had a conference in May. So they always have an earlier event. Right. 2019, February makes sense. They had another conference May 2019. Okay. Right. So to May or June. Right. That's when they tend to happen. 2020, January stuff. There was a Pokemon Direct. June, they had a Pokemon Presents. Going to 2021, Pokemon Day Direct Presents. In August, they had a Pokemon Presents. All right, so there could be something to that idea.
I mean, it could be in the same month as the Switch 2 reveal. There's no
in 2022. In 2022, there was another August Pokemon Presents. Oh, wait, what? What?
I don't know.
In 2023, there was another Pokemon Presents.
Whoa,
I don't remember these at all. Probably they all suck.
No, I don't remember them either.
Yeah. But
actually, I do.
We got 3 years in a row,
Pokemon Presents being one of them being in the same month as a partner showcase or something at one point.
I don't remember, man.
Which I believe was the August one.
Or not.
I don't.
There was a June Pokemon Presents in 2020, and so there would have been
that might have been
partners around there. Yeah, but anyways, we have a long history of August. We have 3 years in a row. Man. All right, I guess we're seeing that Legends ZA gameplay in August before Switch 2.
Probably,
yeah. Maybe that does. I don't know if that dashes my Switch 2 hopes in August, but that's fine if we get
No,
September
I
or
don't
October.
think so.
Yeah. It also depends on when, right? Like they could show off. They could still have a presents in August and still have a teaser in August. I'm not saying they will have a teaser in August, right? I'm willing to take the L on that, but we don't know yet, so we'll see.
I don't think that a Pokemon Presents in August really changes anything in my mind about the validity of a Switch 2 present in August. Like they can both happen. Just it's
Sure.
I don't think they take away from each other at all.
Sure.
I mean, they're not even technically the same company.
Kind of.
Like Pokemon does their own kind of things with announcements usually.
I got you.
Lately, they've been a little more close with Nintendo and like with putting things in directs, but typically they do their own thing with marketing and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I kind of think that they're getting a little. I don't know. We'll see what they do this year. Because this year they didn't have any Pokemon stuff in the direct, but there's also no Pokemon games coming out this year, seemingly.
Right.
So we'll see with that one. But I have a super chat here from George FT. Thank you very much for the super chat, George. George says, since this is an ever debatable topic, is a 7 out of 10 game a bad game? No. I would say a 7 out of 10 is not a bad game.
I want to clarify. I actually don't even think Switch Sports is a bad game necessarily. It's just compared to what I want. Compared to what I wanted it to be, it is a bad game. Compared to what I thought like a Switch Sports could be, it's not at all what I wanted. It was a very, very, very disappointing game, and when you consider that there's an average of 72 like on Metacritic, that means there were plenty of reviewers who went below and above 72. I just tend to agree with the people who went below 72 on the review score. I actually think it's closer to like a 50. It's a very average game. But a 50 isn't a game I would never play. This is just a game I would only play every once in a while in certain occasions and then never ever touch again.
I would never play a 50. That's a failing grade. I know that you don't look at it exactly
in my score, 50 is just average. 50 is like base of the road. No. Like this is a game. It fulfills all the requirements. It's playable. It works well. It's just not that great.
But I don't think 50s on Metacritic are.
But it's not a 50. I'm saying my own personal review.
Thing.
Yeah.
Just
not
make sure that's
not
clear.
Metacritic.
Because 50s on Metacritic are unplayable.
50s on Metacritic are trash. No. I'm saying an average of 72, somebody might think it's a 50. And on my personal review score, like how I grade games, where 50 is like middle of the road, like this is a very average, like it's not a terrible experience, but it's not a great experience. It's just there. That's how I feel about this game. It's just there. I might play it once and twice. I'll enjoy it, but I don't really want to pay $40 for this game. I haven't paid $40 for this game. I've only played it with other people who already own it. And I have fun, but I don't feel the need to buy it. It's very average. Not that great. But a 7 out of 10 game, I feel like, is a game that's pretty good. Like, it has flaws, maybe even a couple major flaws, but nothing that's so big that it's, like, bad. And it's not average. There's actually some pretty decent things about it that set it apart. Like, that's a 7 out of 10 for me. Like, it has some major flaws, but it's nothing that's, like, it doesn't take away from what it does well as well.
I've brought this example up a lot. But like I look at like the Naruto Clash of Ninja games on the like GameCube, and those are 7 out of 10 games. That's the kind of reviews they would get. But I really enjoyed those games. I thought the combat was really fun. I got really into it. What were the issue with the games? I mean, maybe you could argue that the combat was somewhat simplistic, but I actually thought it was fairly deep. Like on the surface it was kind of simplistic, but if you get into like the frame data, like it felt pretty good. But it was niche, right? You had to be kind of like a hardcore Naruto fan to really be willing to dive further into it. And some of the first ones didn't have that much content. And beyond that, it's like it's an anime fighting game, right? So like how much for like what's its ceiling, right? Like it feels like an anime fighting game can never even be a 10 out of 10,
Another thing I want to clarify is like I don't care about Metacritic scores at all. I look at them, I go, that's neat. What I meant by when I didn't purchase Switch Sports because the reviews wasn't the Metacritic score. It was the individual reviews I watched where I looked at the
Yeah,
game. I went, "This isn't for me," and I didn't buy it.
You didn't buy it because you didn't feel that there was enough depth to the gameplay because they didn't
Right.
mix up the sports enough.
Yeah.
That's fine. I get it. Anyway, the point I was making, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it does depend, right? Like, I don't think you should look at a score and be like, "Yep, that's it. It's a 7 out of 10. It's garbage shit forever." No,
Oh,
I think
definitely not. 7 out
like,
of 10s can be very worth it.
honestly, oftentimes I don't even like looking at scores. I want to just look at what people are saying. Like, if it's
Oh
a
yeah,
concept,
most of the people I watch
excites me.
don't do scores. Like Nintendo Life, I don't think really does. Oh no, they
Yeah.
do scores, but I just don't care about them.
like I do care
There's a
about
couple
seeing the
other ones
Metacritic
that
score.
don't do scores though.
Yeah, I like looking at the Metacritic score because it's like interesting, right? And so I'm not saying I don't hold any weight with that, but it's minimal. Really, what I'm looking for, like if there's already a game I know I want based off the look and the gameplay hook and what I see in the footage and all, I'm more so looking at reviews to hear about the details.
Yeah, and I would say
is there good
Metacritic.
execution? Like, is there good? Does it have depth? You know, like
yeah.
things like that, and that's where I decide. Oh, okay, I want to play this or not. Like with Endless Ocean, I wanted it, but then reviews came out. The reviews were poor. But why were the reviews poor? Because when I heard the reviews are poor, my first thought was, oh, these people are just not into it, right? But as it turned out, when I read the reviews, when I listened to the reviews, what they were saying is that the campaign's kind of a slog. It's very slow paced. There's not a lot of depth. And then I was like, oh, well, all right. I guess I don't really feel like wasting $50 on this. I'm probably only going to play it for a couple hours and give up on it. So
the thing about Metacritic scores is they skew low because a game that gets like above a 90 means it's gotten 10 out of 10 out of 10, like over and over and over again. But there's some people who didn't click with it and they maybe gave it a 6 or a 7 and that tanks it. Like just a couple people doing that. Oh, now it's a 90, even though most people give it a 10 out of 10. And maybe if you enjoy that type of game, you probably will think it's 10 out of 10 too. But maybe people who aren't into the game, that type of game, they reviewed it. They were like, this is okay. And then they give it a lower score. So it really tends to skew far downward. Like a game that's 70, like most games hit like between like 70 and 80 in Metacritic, I believe. Like that's like where most games of good quality, right, land. Typically, if you're above 80, then you're like, okay, this is a damn good game. And then if you're above 90, this is like, oh, this is the GOAT. This is one of the best games ever made. You know, that kind of stuff.
Is they do have their aberrations that drag down scores, and that so you gotta take that into consideration too. But Brandon, I really do want to catch up on the chat, and we keep on going.
I think that actually came from a chat. But yeah, let's continue.
I know. But I'm just saying, if each comment we talk about for 20 minutes, then we will not be done until next week.
Yes.
But thank you. I think it was a good talking point from George though. So it was definitely worth discussing. I don't think I got to this one yet. Leo Aguirre, thank you for this other super chat here. According to Miyamoto, a game that sells 30 million copies is considered a hit. What's the only opinion about what he said? I don't know where he said that. He may have said that recently. I missed it.
I think he tried to say that he wanted to release a game that sold over 30 million like every couple of years or something.
When did he say this? Is this a new thing?
Very recently in an interview, he said this.
Miyamoto 30 million hit. I mean, I would say 30 million is a hit. Okay, I'm trying to find this. For Shigeru Miyamoto, you need to sell 30 million copies to be considered a big hit. Okay, let's see here.
Yeah, people have done different takes. That's one I haven't seen necessarily. But there's different takes on what he said.
Itoi. Well, for Nintendo, 1 million units is not considered a huge hit. Miyamoto, I agree. Itoi. Oh, it only sold 1 million copies last. In that case, roughly how many titles do you consider to be big hits, Mr. Miyamoto? Miyamoto, about 30 million. And Miyamoto says, well, we're working to make it happen. So if it breaks, we should consider it a failure. But it seems like everyone talks as if it's breaking even. Itoy. Well, I wonder what about. I need to look at the actual source for this, but anyway, there aren't that many games that have sold 30 million that have become a big hit. Like, if a game hits 30 million, it's like it's a game that changes history, right? By the way,
Yeah,
Wii Sports Resort is one of those games. Um, there's only 12 Nintendo games in history that have gone over 30 million copies sold. Which is kind of crazy. So, man, looking at the list here: Tetris, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, New Super Mario Bros. Pokemon Red, Blue, Green, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Wii Sports Resort, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Kart Wii, Super Mario Bros., Animal Crossing: New Horizons, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Wii Sports. That's intense. I mean,
sports should have been the 13th.
I want to look at the actual source for the interview and kind of break it down and see all the context, right? But without all that, I'll say that I don't think the intent is to be like, oh, well, if the game doesn't sell 30 million, it's a complete failure. I don't think that's what they're getting at here.
No, yeah,
I think
there's
it's more
other
so about achieving the cultural phenomenon. They want to have those kind of games that really change things. They've done it 12 times. They want to do that more.
There's other parts of the interview where he better clarifies what he's saying.
Was I on the money?
Yeah, I mean basically, but he just talks. There's something about like the amount of like times he wants to release them. I don't remember, but there's other things that clarify. I just don't remember what they are. I don't remember enough to tell you what he said, right? Like I remember the gist of what he meant, but I'm not enough to like tell you.
Right. I mean, I get wanting to increase the frequency of them. They don't happen often enough.
Yeah, but there was a certain timing he said he was going for or something.
Like what, every 2 years?
Like it was like every 1 to 3 years or something. He wanted to have like a 30 million plus seller. I don't remember exactly.
Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Here we go. I doubt it, but that would be amazing. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, but anyways, I understand the point. Like, Nintendo wants to get into a position where they are creating more big hits. And when we look at the big hits, right, as I listed them off, like, they're not all the same. There are some, right? But, like, there's only one Mario Kart game. There's actually 2 Mario Kart games there, right? There is one Zelda game, Tetris. There's one Pokemon game. There's one Smash Bros. Game. There's 2 Wii Sports games. 1 Animal Crossing game.
I think another
3 Mario Bros. Games.
Another thing he was saying was like he doesn't consider breaking even to be like what he wants to go for, but he was also talking about how he thinks that if you chase getting the most amount of profit possible, that's also like not something that corporations should be doing, and it's like a big problem, which I generally agree with.
Okay.
So like it was interesting because he had kind of what seems like contradictory points, but aren't really.
Yeah. Sky Sword Alyssa, been a member for 7 months. Hey, how you doing? Taker610 with the super chat as well. Do you guys think Prime 4 is kicking off a new trilogy, or is Retro pivoting to something else? Seems their talent is in the FPS genre. I know a lot of people think that this is a new trilogy. It might be a new trilogy. I would like to think that it's not necessarily a trilogy. It's just the next Metroid Prime. I don't think they should lock themselves to, hey, we're going to make 3. Just when the time is right, make the next one.
I think this game is going to be intrinsically tied to the story of 1 through 3. Like, it will follow that up. So I don't think in that way there's going to be like, oh, this is kind of like the start of a new trilogy where this is like different. No, this is clearly a follow-up to the previous trilogy. So maybe they will make 2 more games, but I don't think in that sense it's going to be like a trilogy story. I mean,
I just don't think that they should be putting a ceiling on this, right? Like, I don't think like, oh, we're gonna make 2 more games. No, you're gonna continue to make Metroid Prime games if they do well,
right?
It's that simple. The same way you're gonna like we're not like, man, now that they've made, well, some people are, but when they made Breath of the Wild, we weren't like, oh, let's make Breath of the Wild the trilogy. No, they're just gonna continue to make Zelda games.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom was a sequel, but they weren't be like, okay, now we have to make a third one in this style. That's not the thinking. It's just, okay, what's the next for Zelda?
And it wasn't even the plan initially to do a sequel. It was just something that they decided to do when they were working on DLC, I believe, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, they may have had some considerations, but yeah,
it wasn't like the plan when they were first making Breath of the Wild. Yeah. Like, oh yes, this is definitely going to be a double.
Yeah. So I would say that I think Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is going to be a marker for more Metroid games to come, but I don't think it's specifically a trilogy.
Right.
That's pretty much what I think. But to catch up with the live chat, because we got a lot of catching up to do. Leo Aguiar asks, wasn't Fire Emblem Engage a January game? It absolutely was a January game, and they announced it and dated it in a September Direct just a few months beforehand. This week Pops added me earlier. I'm doing a new game plus for Fire Emblem Three Houses right now. Which house did you choose? I chose Black Eagles for my first run.
Chose Golden Lions, I think it is.
I don't know. Maybe it's Yellow Peacocks.
No. Wait, what are the three houses?
I don't know. I only remember my house.
Houses.
Let me know.
Wikipedia help. Three houses. What are they? Wikipedia,
Connor.
why?
Connor asks me, Andres and Brandon, oh, okay, so if we get a mini direct, does that mean we're not going to see Tomodachi Life? Because I'm still hoping it does. I think Tomodachi Life is a big seller. We shouldn't. I mean, they could announce that in a direct, right? Like they remasters in a direct or even an occasional new game or two is not really.
Even if it's a mini direct, they're gonna have something. It's not like that's the biggest IP that they have. It will sell well, but it's not like it's like, man, this is gonna be a big budget game.
No,
right?
It's a low budget game that sells an ass ton.
Right. Yeah.
Ronnie Fazio asks me, hey man, congratulations on the milestone. Thank you. So with Sony and Nintendo working together more with the Zelda movie and Lego Horizon, how possible is it for a PlayStation character to be in Smash? I initially would have said no, but to your point, they are working more closely together. I also think that the Sony Pictures is very separate from PlayStation, though, right? So I wouldn't put too much stock into the Sony working on the movie. But the Lego Horizons thing, like if you want to have Alloy in the next Smash Brothers, that I don't think that's totally 100% out of the question. I really don't. And I'll tell you this, if we see that, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more PlayStation games come to Nintendo. Now, personally, I'm going to reserve kind of judgment on this because, I think Lego Horizon feels like a one-off to me, but I also will acknowledge that if things go well, maybe they'll do more, right? And actually, if things go well and not go well, if that makes any sense. If things go well in terms of Lego Horizon selling on Switch, okay. But if things also don't go well, where Sony's still thinking, man, we need to find more ways to kind of increase our profit margins here, then they're like, oh, well, maybe we should sell more games on Switch. So if both those things kind of go in the directions I discussed, then I think we could see more Sony games come to Nintendo, and thus maybe, it does kind of open the door for something or someone like Alloy to be in Smash Brothers. I would put it it's not going to be, I don't know, maybe I can see my mind evolving on this, right? I'm not ready to say that Alloy is 100% coming next Smash Brothers, but I think it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah. I was partly listening to you, partly losing my mind because nobody will just straight up say what the three house. I had to get the Brave AI to tell me what they are. I had to use AI, man. They're usually the wrong thing to use, but I could not. It's Black Eagles, Blue Lions, Golden Deers.
Could have told you that.
You could have told me that. No, you couldn't.
Yeah,
Shut up.
I could have, but I didn't. I don't think it was that hard to find.
Nobody would freaking just say what it was.
Anyway, so which one did you pick when you played? The blue.
I think Golden Deer. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Golden Deer, right? Because he's. Let me look at.
Yeah, Golden Deer.
Yeah, but I don't remember if that's.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. It was that guy.
Yeah. No, I had to look. I would have to look it up too. I'm just messing with you. Anyway. Rico Lee, just because they've announced most or all their major Switch games for the rest of this year doesn't mean that's literally all the games coming this year or all they have to announce. They could announce like a Shadow Drop game in September. For example, if there's like a direct mini or just a general direct, that's possible. They could have like, for example, if there is a Pokemon Presents in August, there could be like a small like eShop Pokemon game that could be launched then as well, and there's Shadow Drop. Sometimes we do see social media announcements for a Nintendo game that comes out a little bit later. I mean, we thought they would announce that in May. They did. It was at the Super Nintendo World Championships NES edition. Well, I had a hope that we would have gotten a direct or sooner, but if they didn't, they would have to announce the game in May, and they did. And they can't come out in July, and that's what happened. So could they do that again? Yes. Maybe they'll announce some sort of, I don't know, like Boxing Fitness 4 or something for December. Like some small things like that we could potentially see. AB James asks me, Samus Returns releasing so late on 3DS though kind of hurts sales. It should have been an easy million seller on 3DS. I think the game is around 600K. Yeah. I remember the timing on that being really weird. Fortunately, now for cool games like that, with Switch 2, we believe there's going to be backwards compatibility, potentially enhancements. We won't run into that issue again. I will say that I made a video about this a few days ago, but Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, us getting an HD version of a game that was already demade for 3DS and originally released on Wii, the notion of us getting a remaster of a remaster, remaster of a remake, I know it's maybe not extremely likely, but I think it's a little bit more likely than before. So, I wouldn't be surprised if someday we see like a reworked Samus Returns for like Switch 2 or something.
It'd be nice. I never played it.
It is a shame that it's only sold 600,000 or something like that.
I would have bought it. I would have bought it.
It's a good game. It's a good game.
But nobody cared about 3DS at the time. At least I didn't. Nobody in my family was scared.
I really wish it was. I wished it was on Switch at the time, but it was the last 3DS.
Everything was hyped about. All the hype was on Switch, and
I think Ultra Sun and Moon came out on 3DS then too. I was like, there's no way I'm playing this garbage. I'm playing Switch. I don't care. Yeah.
It wasn't.
I used to buy Pokemon games every single year back. I mean, I still kind of do if it's good. But
I heard the story was worse than the original. Like they messed things up.
I don't know. Some people liked it. It's just like different. It's like an alternate reality. I didn't play it, so I don't know the exact details.
I just heard some people's opinions. They didn't like it. The story very much.
Yeah. Spheromancer. I have an ever-growing confident feeling that EPD is making Animal Crossing for Switch 2 release. It feels like it makes sense, but there was that code name leak that seems to suggest that the next Splatoon's already in the works. That doesn't mean both can't be in the works, though.
Oh, yeah.
So
they are in the works.
They probably both are in the works, yeah. And Animal Crossing did really well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to get a new one ready sooner than usual.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't put more content into that one, considering how well it did. People were like, please. I mean, they had a big DLC for it, which was nice. Like, the DLC was good, but they didn't add like normal just updates to the game like they did for New Leaf. Yeah.
Looking in the chat here, Sam Talks Games asks me, did you get Luigi's Mansion 2 HD? I really liked it on 3DS, but I haven't picked up the remaster because it's overpriced. I have not picked it up. I might pick it up eventually.
$60, right?
Yeah. I do want to, but right now I'm playing through Thousand Year Door. I just got the DLC for Elden Ring. Like, I don't need it right now.
Honestly,
I might come back to it.
Play through Luigi's Mansion 3 again. I love that game. And from what I've seen of 2, like, I've seen people play all the way through 2, 100%. And I just know that, like, the game structure just would annoy me, and I wouldn't I wouldn't really enjoy it enough for me to pay $60 for it. If it was like 30, $40, then I probably would get it because I know I'll enjoy the game, but it's not gonna be even close to how much I enjoyed 3, just because I know how the game is structured, and I know that like the bosses are really underwhelming and like there's a lot of design flaws in that game. But it's not a terrible game. It's just not even close to like the
Sure.
quality of even 1 or 3.
All right. I mean, 3 is definitely the better game, but I also want to see Luigi's Mansion 1, but I'll take a go back to 2. Let's end the poll. Hey, the poll changed a little bit. August is still the dead last option, so most people disagree with us. It's at 12% of the 137 votes we received for when the Switch 2 reveal is happening. Afterwards is 27%. October is 29%, but many people are feeling September at 31%. I think that's really interesting. I mean, my main takeaway is that majority of people feel that September or October is a likely reveal time for Switch 2, and everyone thinks I'm crazy. That part,
I mean,
maybe a minor exaggeration.
September isn't when I would think, but I mean, they could do early September.
Yeah,
and still show stuff at like all the events you were talking about before, like Tokyo Game Show and stuff.
we'll see.
But then they probably wouldn't have like I assume they wouldn't have a Switch. I mean, maybe they do a Switch Mini and like early in the month, and they do that later. But
I mean, I feel like they could announce in September a Nintendo Direct Mini. If they announce a Nintendo Direct Mini, like not a partner showcase, a Nintendo Direct Mini in September, right? The holy smokes Switch 2 is about to get shown off. Hype train will happen. You know what I mean? Especially if there are some rumors like, hey, there's going to be a Direct Mini in September, and then there's going to be an actual like Switch to reveal in October. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if it does,
but October didn't win. September won. They think it's going to happen in September, which I feel like.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think August through October are all viable options. So,
yeah, I just wouldn't have predicted September.
Yeah. And if it's after, I think it's because Switch 2 got delayed again, or all the reports are wrong for a second time, which would then support the notion that this is just a mass conspiracy, which I don't believe. So
it's just funny because September in my head is like the least likely option for a Switch 2 reveal.
Hey man, the people have spoken.
Yeah, people disagree. Maybe the people are right. Maybe they know more than me.
They might.
I mean, I don't know anything. I'm just guessing.
Listen. When we do polls, sometimes Chad is right. Sometimes Chad is wrong. No one's always right. No one's always wrong.
These polls are foolproof. They're always right.
Unless you're Michael Pachter.
This is the truth.
Unless you're Michael Pachter.
Is he a football
not everyone's
player?
always. He's an analyst that's always wrong.
Oh.
Yeah. Usually says Nintendo's screwed.
Sounds like a.
He's actually probably.
I'm thinking of the Packers. I think that's a football team.
He's also
the Green Bay Packers or something.
Mike, I don't even think he's always wrong.
I don't know.
He's probably right sometimes. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know, man. We'll see. But let's continue on. We got a lot of other things to discuss, and we've only really talked about one thing, even though we've talked about a variety of things. So these will probably not spend as much time on, but we'll focus more on them. I mean, we've touched on all of these before, right?
Right.
So, what's next? Metroid Prime 4 graphics or Ocarina of Time remake talk? Let's do Metroid Prime 4.
Okay.
Unless you really wanted me to do the other one.
No, we can. It doesn't really matter.
All right. So here we are. I'm doing it in the order of the title of the video. All right. So, Brandon, you and I did our graphics analysis. Great job, by the way. For those
doing really well.
Yeah, Brandon wrote the script, and then I paraphrased and added some little things. And yeah, he did the B-roll. I did the audio and thumbnail and all that jazz. B-roll.
Yeah, although I did all the
visuals. Yeah. But yeah, taking a look at the game looks amazing. But some people think this game is somehow the footage is somehow not Switch 1 footage. What say you, Brandon?
I say this is clearly Switch 1 footage. If this was Switch 2 footage, I would be very,
Disappointed.
very disappointed.
Yeah, very.
Because
I'd be
this
like, oh,
is
we're screwed.
not only is this clearly at a Switch quality resolution of around 900p, it seems. Almost certainly 900p at this point. We're not even sure if dynamic resolution is in place, but it might be. But 900p seems to be the typical figure, which is the same for Metroid Prime Remastered, which makes sense because this game definitely it
Yeah.
looks better, but it's evolutions of the engine in ways that aren't. I don't think they're like technical demanding. Like they're not. It's not. I don't think this game is going to be that much more demanding in terms of the actual like features they're using, but they're refined. They're refined in ways that the art looks a lot better, and they refined their techniques in ways that make the game look visually better. Even though I expect it will perform around the same.
Yeah. Something that I was surprised to see, right? Because there was a lot of talk that we weren't going to see the arm cannon lighting effects, but it looks like the arm cannon lighting effects are better than they ever have been. So like in the original Metroid Prime trilogy, when you shoot, you'll see like a quick flash across the screen.
Right.
It's like a cool little trick to kind of show that the arm cannon's lighting up the environment. And you could kind of use this to like sort of light up areas that are dark, which is a neat thing. In Prime Remastered, most of that is gone. Like there's like subtle lighting, but it's very subtle, like extremely subtle that you might not ever even notice. But in Prime 4, at first we didn't see it because there's so much going on. Some people thought it wasn't there. But
there's a lot of compression on that video. I
yeah,
really wish Nintendo would upload.
Super Mario Dave 64
higher
uploaded.
bitrate content.
Well, first off, there is uncompressed versions out there already for the game, and Super Mario Dave actually put out one on his channel if you want to like find it on YouTube. So it looks pretty good.
I mean, it's still going to be compressed because it's on YouTube. I'm curious
but if you do like a 4K version, you know, right? Like
yeah. Is it up? Do they have it uploaded in 4K?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, then it'll look pretty good. It'll still be compressed compared to the original, but it won't.
Yeah.
It won't be that. It won't be that bad.
Right. But anyways, about the arm cannon thing, like what I noticed is that like it lights up a lot more, right? Like it lights up the floor, the wall, and it lights up like the enemies in a really cool way. Like if you go frame by frame, it's going really fast, right? The beam shot.
Yeah.
But like right before it hits a space pirate, you see them like light up. And it's just kind of crazy. Like they're about to get smoked. And you just see all the yellow or blue just like flashing on their armor and skin. Bam. And it's all within like a frame or two. But it's subtle, but it's super cool.
Something I would love to see from the Switch 2 version though is they could definitely do this. This wouldn't need like ray tracing or anything or adding anything to the engine. I don't think too much. It's just a very heavy feature. But if they enabled shadow, like the beams themselves, like every shot to be a shadow casting light source, then you can actually see like huge like shadows coming from like you can have it light up indoors and have the shadows like alpha everything.
So like in my head, right? So imagine you're in a room. I'm kind of like trying to describe what I think what you're saying, right? So let's say there's a rock to your left and a bush to your right, and a space pirate in the back left, right? And you walk into this room and you shoot your arm cannon straight. And so what you'll see is that you'll see a shadow cast on the wall to the right from the bush. You'll see a shadow cast to the wall to the left from the rock. And then as it passes by space pirate, you'll also see a shadow cast off in the corner to the left as well, right before it hits the wall.
Exactly.
And so how cool that would be is that you'll see like the shadows moving dynamically, right? And so it's going to give you a greater sense of like just in a more in-depth environment, and it's going to feel more alive, I guess. That'd be crazy. I guess that's something they could put in the Switch 2 version.
Right.
And also reflections, refractions, like a lot of things like that.
Yeah, they don't have in their engine like screen space reflections or anything. But there's not in Prime Remastered there wasn't really any super shiny surfaces. But in this game, I don't think we've seen any signs of screen space reflection. So that's something they could add to the Switch 2
I
version.
mean, they might have like a few situations where it's there,
Right.
but
I mean, they may
like,
use other techniques. Like they could use very well aligned cube maps at a high resolution. Those look very convincing. Or they could use like what's called a planar reflection, which essentially I believe they like build things under the map, and then they just distort them to look like with the displacement map on the water. It's a very, very old technique, but it's still used sometimes today.
yeah. Something else I kind of think they could do for the Switch 2 version is like, because it was a cool effect I didn't notice until I saw what you pointed out, right? Is that when the space pirates get annihilated, they are actually annihilated. So they collapse to the floor, and the way they despawn is they disintegrate, which is cool, right? It's not just like a basic fade, which kind of takes away from your immersion. They disintegrate.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. It's believable, but also they do. It's a cool way to have them despawn. That keeps your immersion, but they still despawn relatively quick. It would be interesting if in the Switch 2 version we see the bodies hang around for a little while longer, so you can rack them up. Which I think that would be a way to kind of improve things a little bit more on top of everything we've mentioned.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting you to say something.
Sorry, that's something.
I hate you.
My phone distracted me. I'm a typical. Well, I'm not a millennial. I'm just. Well, it depends on who you ask. I'm either a millennial or Gen Z, but typical Gen Z.
I would have clicked remove, but I don't know what'll happen, so I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, how dare you, Brandon? But anyways,
what was your point? Summarize real quick.
I hate you.
Yes.
I hate you.
This is the
end. I was just talking about how it'd be cool if in the Switch 2 version, we're assuming it's the Switch 2 version. We don't know that for a fact, but if in the Switch 2 version they have like fallen space pirates stay around longer, they don't despawn very quick. Because we see them disintegrate. I want to still see that cool disintegration effect. We just see it after a little while longer when there's multiple space pirates that are dead, and it just kind of it increases the believability of the environment a bit more. Like after you massacre a bunch of enemies, you want to actually take your time and like, oh, this is what I murdered, right? Let me now scan their dead corpses. That'll be interesting. It'd be also cool if you can scan a dead space pirate corpse and you get kind of like an explanation of how they died, even though you're the one that killed them. But they're like, oh, this guy got blasted in the head, so there was a huge concussive blast, right? That caused like massive lacerations upon the collarbone, and it lost like an artery, or like it would be interesting if like depending on where and how you hit them and kill them, you see explanations of how they actually died. That would be a really cool attention to detail that would then encourage people to be scanning things more. Retro, if you haven't done it yet, think about it. And like it could be like, I understand they'll probably want to have like the basic explanation of certain space pirates, but maybe you put it as like the last thing, right? I know like they showed one in the beginning of the trailer because there are some that are already there, right? Like it's scripted. But I'm talking about unscripted moments where you're killing just a basic space pirate. They add like an extra little kind of autopsy report. It's not actually an autopsy, but something like that at the end of the scan.
Right.
Yeah.
Something I was thinking, because I'm trying to think of,
damn it, I forgot to
things
add
that
I'm gonna do it soon, I promise.
Facts. I'm trying to think of interesting
pointing
upgrades.
out that we don't 9 with the super chat. Congrats on 38K, but our beyond emojis, please. I will put them together. For next week, I promise. I'll make them. Thank you for super chat. What were you saying, Brandon?
Yeah, I was trying to think of like meaningful upgrades to the visuals, because obviously there's going to be a big resolution increase. Things like they'll probably use. I assume they'll use DLSS.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of low resolution textures that they should just like.
Yeah, like
you know.
high resolution textures. Like, but those are like very basic, obvious things.
Well, so
Another
you notice the pipe that goes down. I think it's not casting any shadow or doesn't have any occlusion
Mm.
as it's rolling down, like stuff like that. You
Yeah,
know,
I think that
which is
just
basically just
shadow
more.
casting lights in general,
Yeah.
because like fire isn't shadow casting in the Switch 1 version. They
Oh
could add
man,
that.
that would make a big
Like
difference.
explosions aren't shadow casting. That could be incorporated.
I mean,
There
the
could be
thing
a
is,
lot of shadow casting lights, and
shadow
that would make the game look
casting
way
and
better.
reflections and a few more cool lighting effects, like that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And if the game has HDR, right, high dynamic range, all the textures are at a sharper resolution.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
And
something
these
else they
aren't
can
hard
do.
things to do. These are
There's something
very
else they
quick
can
things
do.
to do.
So something that was noted about the background, the forest area by Joey Ferris in our discussion is that
Mm,
it kind of almost looks like a piece of art. Like it's
it
not
is.
actually a 3D environment. They
Yeah,
could
it's
maybe make
like
the Switch
multiple
2
2D
version
images.
a 3D rendered environment.
It could. At the very least, I think
Yeah.
they should up the resolution of that
Yeah.
environment, because it is kind of noticeably a little
Yeah.
low res.
I mean, beyond that, I don't know what else you do, bro. Like,
But I do think like just having DLS clean up the immense amount of aliasing that we see in that trailer
oh yeah,
alone
that
would
too.
clean it up. You add some shadow casting lights, which depending on how the engine setup could literally just be a couple of button clicks and then save settings. And then just optimizing for performance, obviously. And then just use higher resolution versions of the assets you probably already have, because you didn't probably make them, and you probably have made them a higher resolution and scaled them down to work on Switch. So you probably already have higher resolution versions of the assets. There's a lot of things that they could very easily put in that would make the game look a lot better, but this obviously is not Switch 2 footage.
And why is it obvious?
I mean, the aliasing alone makes it obvious to me, because if you
Yeah.
use something like DLSS, you're not going to get aliasing like that.
I also feel like the forest area, we can see the low poly environment. Like it's not low poly for Switch, but it's relatively low poly, right? To your point, there's a lot of shadows that are not being casted. The resolution as well. The environment's not being fully rendered in the background. Like there's a lot of cool little tricks they're doing. But there's also a lot of resolution textures. Like there's just a lot of things that you wouldn't expect this on
low.
you wouldn't expect us it like listen, like does a game look really good for Switch? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does it make some people think it question if it's even possible? Sure. I felt the same way about Prime Remastered. But they already did it with Prime Remastered. But the jump that we're going to see with Switch 2 is just so significant that there's no way that right, like it's too vast of a difference to be like, oh, there's no, like if it was a Switch 2 version, these little things we're talking about wouldn't be there.
Like this is less of an obvious Switch 2 version than like when we saw Tears of the Kingdom trailers. A lot of them were like very high resolution compared to what the actual game was. They were nicely anti-aliased. Some people questioned whether that was Switch footage or not, which it wasn't. It was not Switch footage. It was like some PC version of the game or some build. It was not indicative of how the game was going to look
Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Yes, for Tears of the Kingdom. In terms of image quality, that's just not how it ended up looking. But this is not what we're seeing here. We're seeing obvious image quality.
We saw
flaws.
actual gameplay with the actual HUD. Like it's the actual game. Like that was someone playing the game.
There's frame drops in the trailer.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like we were seeing issues, which suggested, hey, this is actually running on a Switch. That wouldn't be an ideal, perfectly realized environment on a PC.
No.
Great point. But I think we can move on and just get to the chat and see what people have to say.
Watch that video though, guys, if you haven't seen it. Great video. Shows everything that we're talking about and more.
I think Brandon, you did a great job. I really liked the video. I'm happy with what was accomplished there. Newido9. Yep, just a small note that top notch on Samus's visor makes so much of a difference for me. Yeah, I do like how the visor actually matches, like the HUD matches the visor actually. Right. It does add to the immersion there. It's good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Captain Doge says, pretty sure that's a thing you could do in previous Prime games, but it was just a subject has flatlined. This is probably in reference to us talking about, like, if you kill an enemy, you can scan them and see an explanation. Yeah, like I don't remember that. That makes sense, but I do want to see like an actual explanation. Like if I blast their arm, I want to see like died due to like excessive blood lost from arm laceration or something, or concussive. Like, you know what I mean? Like I actually want an explanation for how they died. It's almost like a cool scorecard. Like, oh, this is where you hit the enemy, but done in a really fun way. AB James asked me, Andres, did you see in Joey's ultimate Prime 4 analysis, he discovered a circular red icon that looked like a pickup item, but looked completely new. Wonder what it could be. Yeah, I did see it. His analysis, and I saw the red thing. I would have to go back and take a closer look at it. My first guess is that it's just like, red life, but I don't know. So I'll take another look. I don't have any other ideas on it for now. Something I will note though, is that there is a lot going on during those space pirate fights. Like there are space pirates being attacked from others. There are different blasts going on. And like you have allies on your radar, you have enemies on your radar, and it feels like the environment's a little dynamic. Like not everything's totally scripted, or at least it gives off that feel.
Like the map is not like how at least I don't know how Prime 2 and 3 are, but I assume they're like Prime 1, where it's like a 3D like model. Like at least on the HUD, like it's not 3D. It's like kind of like top down too. Like it's a very different look and perspective.
There are parts that look like 3D, and there are parts that don't. I think
maybe there's two different types of map views.
Might be because like maybe when you're out in the open, it's a little bit more expanded and flat to kind of show off a larger landscape.
Right. Because what I'm thinking of is like that first lead up to the base. Like the
we're on the same page. I was thinking about the exact same thing. But once you're inside the base, like it looks more like the traditional Metroid Prime map, just in blue instead of orange. Yeah. But I think it's kind of like wide, like that corner. Like it feels like like I feel like you could fit in a Xenoblade mini map in there. I don't think the areas are going to be as large as Xenoblade.
Probably not.
But world structure might be somewhat similar, but with a lot more intertwining corridors.
I don't think we've seen the biggest part of the map yet.
Probably not. No.
I think that like part at the end, like where we see that like grassy tree area, I think there's going to be areas that are like a couple times bigger than that.
I would assume so. Yeah, which is still not that big. But we'll see.
But for Prime, it would be big.
Yeah.
At least for Prime 1, I haven't played 2 and 3. Maybe there's some bigger areas there. I don't know.
Yeah. Going through the chat here, the real J-Stone asks me, do you think Metroid Prime 2 3 HD will happen after Metroid Prime 4 launch? I'm gonna stick with before for now.
Yeah.
But I almost think like it's weird for me to imagine Prime 4 is a day one launch title, and then Prime 2 and 3 come out a couple weeks before Switch. So I think I'm changing my mind a little bit. I know maybe that's like a weird reason to kind of change your mind, but maybe it's kind of like I anticipate both of these things happening. So how does it make the most sense to me? And I kind of feel like maybe Prime 4 is not a day one Switch 2 title, but maybe it comes out in like the first, like the second, third, or fourth month. And at that point, you can have a direct, right? Maybe Metroid Prime 4 comes out like July of next year, And then there's a direct in June where they talk about Switch 1 and Switch 2 things. They're like, hey, guess what? Metroid Prime 2 and 3 shall drop now. You can play them now. In a few weeks, play Metroid Prime 4 Beyond as our big summer July game, It has a huge online multiplayer. Like, I think like that is pretty conceivable. Yeah. Oh, by the way, something news related came up. I haven't covered this in a video yet. But with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, apparently it's not going to have cloud saves, which is interesting because most Nintendo games that don't allow cloud saves also have online multiplayer. There's a couple exceptions, but a lot of them don't. So it seems to help the argument that there's going to be multiplayer. It doesn't confirm, right? There are some exceptions, but it definitely helps the growing conversation that's leaning in this direction. So
It
interesting
would
stuff
suck
there.
if it is single player only. It doesn't have cloud saves,
Yeah,
especially
like
if it's
why?
the Switch 2 version.
Yeah,
And if they don't come, if somehow they don't end up coming at the same time, that would be really bad too.
I kind of
So it means if you want to like switch over to Switch 2 afterwards,
basically
then
what I
have
think
to
is that
start over.
there is online multiplayer. Like that's why. Also, they're going to come out at the same time. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's the only way it makes sense, and for it to not be like a real head scratcher.
Yeah.
So going through the chat, RNL asks me, I think Mario and Sonic will get a new game, but they won't show it to us until the next direct or till next console. Maybe. I don't know. I was kind of skeptical on us getting another Mario and Sonic. I feel like they've been quiet lately, but maybe I'm wrong. I feel like we talked about this before. But then I saw some people arguing otherwise, and I was like, all right, well, maybe you're right. It's not a hill I want to die on.
Yeah,
So.
we thought it might get announced in the direct.
I think the last Mario and Sonic was it in 2020? It's been a while, hasn't it? One's like, I don't know. I'm a little. Let me see if I'm trying to find a list of the Mario and Sonic games. I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, I remember before because I said that I had heard, or I felt that they had said that they weren't going to do anymore, but I couldn't find anything on it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where I got that idea from.
Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. So the original release 2007, 2008. Then there's a 2012 version. Then the 2016. Then 2020. But there's also the Winter Olympics, and the last one of that was 2013. So we haven't seen a Mario Olympics since 2020. It's now 2024. I mean, conceivably they could wait until 2025, I guess. But I mean, when's the next Olympics? This is how I'm not. I don't know.
I have no idea.
It's next month. Actually, it starts in a couple weeks. It starts on 26th. Yeah. So
they probably would have announced something by now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe they could announce it in September. It comes out early next year. It's possible.
I guess.
Yeah, but I am kind of starting to think that maybe it's not going to happen. I've been kind of thinking it's not going to happen, but
yeah,
we'll see. Let's see here. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm growing a little skeptical. The real J-Stone asks me, I think Metroid Prime 4 will release mid-2025, May-ish. Yeah, I mean, I think May to July is... That's kind of I kind of feel that. May is cool because it means that they announce the game, or they re-announce the game, and it comes out less than a year afterwards, which is good. But also 2 more months is not really the end of the world either. I don't think it's a holiday 2025 game. I think it's coming out way sooner than that.
Yeah. I think it would be within the first 3 months.
Right. Ronnie Fazio asks me, I still really love Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. That was the game that got me to try competitive breeding. I got a perfect 5 IV Garchomp named Gigon. Nice.
I don't know what that means, but that sounds cool.
It is cool. It's a good Garchomp.
Hell yeah.
5 IV, like, if you're breeding, right, especially back then, it was a little harder to get a 5 IV Garchomp. That means 5 of its 6, like, innate stats. So, like, IVs are individual values, right?
Right.
A Pokemon has its own base stats, right? And every Pokemon of the same species, let's take Pikachu, for example. You take 20 Pikachus, right? They're going to have the same, like, base stat total, but there's also an IV stat, and each Pikachu will have a different spread of IV stats. And there's it goes 0 through 31, if I'm not mistaken. For each of the 6 stats: HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. And so basically what it means is that his Garchomp has 5 of those 6 stats to be totally perfect, right? So it's kind of like a cream of the crop Garchomp. And I'm going to hope, I don't know, right? But like a 5 IV Garchomp also might be perfect because you may not even want to have like perfect special attack anyways, if that's where the IV was bad. So, it's pretty good. Usually, especially for like sweepers, Pokemon that are fast and hit strong, you want to just make sure they have the best attack stat and best speed stat, and everything else doesn't matter as much. Of course, Garchomp is also bulky. You want to take some hits. So ideally, you do have, perfect HP defense and special defense as well. But at this point, we're talking about small little differences, right? But when you're competitive, those small little differences can be the difference between winning the game or not, right? If your Pokemon has 31 speed versus 30, that could be the difference. It matters. Anyways, that's
Makes
good.
sense.
Let's see here. I think we should get into our final topic.
Yeah.
All right. So, Brandon, I put out a video the day after we did our graphics comparison for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, where I was talking about how Mr. Eiji Aonuma likes to tease future Zelda games. And when I already knew that I had a compelling amount of evidence going into, like, I guess, the production of the video. But as I was kind of looking up more stuff, I found even more stuff. And I was kind of shocked at how many times Aonuma has teased future Zelda games. And not only did I realize, like, I had, like, I don't know. If I go to the video, I have like 20 sources in the description. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but it was a lot. Let's see. Let me see here. Let's see. That's a lot of HTTPSs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, not all of those are literally him teasing a future game. There might be something else I'm referencing. Although, for the most part, yeah. There's a lot of teases there. But something else I noticed, Brandon, by the way, some of those are hard confirmed to be teases. Like, he came back and said, yeah, I teased Link's Awakening Remake. Or, like, some of them are just painfully obvious. Like Skyward Sword HD, right?
Yeah.
I've noticed that a little bit of a pattern where if he's teasing something, he laughs. And there was actually an article from IGN where he was asked about Majora's Mask, right? And he told them, hey, make sure to write down that I laughed. He did laugh, for the record. And what happened a couple of years later? He laughed, right? But he explained that he wants to put out a laugh. He doesn't want people to think that it's like, oh, I'm bothered by the question at all. He just wants to, like, laugh, and he'll leave that up to fans to interpret. But yeah, Majora's Mask 3D did happen, right? When he was asked, he laughed about it, right?
This other Majora's Mask 3D, it's because that was a big one, whether Majora's Mask 3D was going to happen or not. I remember before A Link Between Worlds came out, I think it was Aonuma was being asked, and he was like, you'll know when Link Between Worlds comes out whether or not Majora's Mask 3D is real. And then in that game, there is a Majora's Mask, I believe, in Link's house or in the shop, hanging out. But there's a Majora's Mask, like, very obviously displayed, and a key area in the game, which I believe is Link's house.
Interesting.
And then that was like the obvious tease, and that was also like another, a very, very, very not subtle tease for that game.
Yeah. And so there have been teases like that within the games a few times, but when you look at interviews, Aonuma has teased many different Zelda games. He's done it. He did it for Link's Awakening. He did it for Majora's Mask 3D, for Skyward Sword. He did it for Echoes of Wisdom. Literally last December, we had an interview where he talked about a playable Zelda, and he laughed during that time, right? So there's a history of this, and actually, I took this opportunity to go back to the interviews where we thought Aonuma was hinting at Ocarina of Time, right? And there's 2 different times. And in both of those interviews, he laughed, uncharacteristic to the rest of the interview when talking about this possible Ocarina of Time. And what's extra interesting, right? Let me see here. Let me go to the video. All right, so I had pinned a comment, right? So Brian P. Shea, which is the writer of the Game Informer interview, where at the end he asked Mr. Eiji Aonuma, is there going to be an Ocarina of Time remake? And then Aonuma laughed. He said he laughed and said no comment. something interesting that he noted. Apparently he watched my video, and I pinned the comment because he said, right. I mean, I'll just read out what he said. Hey, I'm the one who did the Game Informer interview with Anuma and Fujibayashi and asked a question about the Ocarina of Time remake. Thanks for continuing to cover our interviews on Zelda. Since he pointed out that he will sometimes say his answers in English, I feel it pertinent to say that while I didn't type that he changed language during the interview, he did in fact laugh, then say no comment in English. So here, Brian is providing new information from the interview. When he said no comment, he didn't say it in Japanese. He said it in English. And there have been a few times when he not only laughs, but stops speaking in Japanese to clarify on something in English. Was like, hey, no comment. Or there was a maybe, which was for playable Princess Zelda, which 6 months or 7 months later, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And so basically, watch the video, because I think I go over many different articles, and I show this correlation with Anuma breaking character, speaking in English, laughing, getting caught up in the fun of something, and talking about something, and then later we see that what he was talking about was in fact a tease for a later Zelda game. And there's a long history of it. It's not just one or two times. It's several times, and so it keeps happening. And so in the context of Ocarina of Time, where we have two different interviews that fit this entire pattern, I'm like, all right, well, it's happening. Like, I believe it now more than ever, right? Like, these interviews have existed. We've talked about them before, but looking at them with the perspective of everything we've seen from other interviews from Anuma and seeing the patterns and how they connect with all this context in mind, the interviews feel like the teases of them, this idea that he was teasing something, now feel all the more believable. So yeah, I've already been predicting Ocarina of Time remake, but now I'm like surprised at how strong the interviews are supporting my argument. Like I feel really good about this prediction now. Like I felt good about it before, but I feel really good about it now. And whenever someone tells me they don't think it's happening, I think, oh, they haven't seen the interviews. They should watch that video, because I was just surprised. I was surprised at just how I feel like I made a compelling argument when you look at everything together. So I'm all in on it. I'm all in on it, and I'm excited for it. Now, that does not mean I think it's happening soon. It's not a Switch 1 game. It's a Switch 2 game. The idea would be to get out an epic 3D Zelda game early on the Switch 2 that wouldn't take, the efforts of the entire Zelda team, probably be outsourced by a trusted developer and then overseen while they work on the next new 3D Zelda. It's going to take some time. But then it can still put out something epic for 3D Zelda fans early on for Switch 2 and showcase the hardware a little bit. So I think, honestly, at this stage, especially when we look at the interviews, right? Like there's usually sometimes it's 6 months in the case of Echoes of Wisdom, but oftentimes he's teasing things like 3 years in advance, right? So for those that are like, oh, this is not real, he talked about it a year ago. Well, several times, like Link's Awakening remake, for example, teased it in 2016, confirmed it himself to the same magazine, Edge magazine, that he was teasing it in 2019. He confirmed that. So 3-year gap there, right? And that's when the game came out. So we saw these interviews last year, 2023, right? I'm predicting 2026. That's when we see it. Switch 2 is coming out next year. If we're getting Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends ZA, 3D Mario, maybe Mario Kart, maybe the next Monolith Soft game, maybe another Switch Sports, they probably don't need
possibly
Zelda.
A remaster of Breath of the Wild, and probably an upgrade patch for Tears of the Kingdom.
Maybe, right? So I don't think they need that in 2025. But the second year.
I mean, could you imagine if they did get it out for holiday 2025, though? How epic that would be.
My wallet.
Oh.
I don't know if I just I don't know. I don't see it happening because
no, I don't. But it would be absolutely insane.
Unless you want to tell me that, listen, if you want to tell me that we're not getting 3D Mario or not, I think we're getting 3D Mario and Mario Kart next year. But if you're gonna tell
Right.
me that Mario Kart's not coming out next year, right, and they want to launch Switch 2 with 3D Mario in March, and then maybe come out and have something for the holiday, okay. But like, I would think that, like, my thinking is that Mario Kart is either a launch title or a holiday title, and 3D Mario is the other one, right? Like
You
that's
don't think that Mario Kart could be something like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe time frame where it's a couple months, or was it one month or 2 months after?
listen. There's something different between a deluxe version of a game and a brand new game. It's different.
but
It's
they could
different.
still release it.
I know. I recognize Mario Kart Deluxe has sold over 60 million copies. It's probably already hit 62 million copies, even though it hasn't been reported yet. I think
they might want to get it out as quickly as possible so it can hit as many numbers as possible, because they know it will sell to pretty much everybody who owns the console.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to start that evergreen status, right away, like pretty close. I could see it going either way, but I definitely think that it coming
I'm not gonna
out
say it's
like
impossible.
1 to 3 months after is should be taken into consideration.
Yeah. I
think like some sort of multiplayer game very early on is very good for the console, because you want to sell that online. You want to keep that going.
I mean, I think Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is gonna have online. Obviously, Mario Kart, like,
right. Well, yeah, but you don't think Mario Kart's gonna come out to holiday, and we don't know if Metroid Prime 4 is gonna have online.
I didn't say that. I said okay. For launch, I think most likely we're either getting 3D Mario or Mario Kart. So we could get Mario Kart at launch, but it's one or the other. It's either 3D Mario or Mario Kart, and then the other one's coming out for holiday. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying they're going to sandwich that 9-month window, or you understand what I'm saying? Is that making sense now?
No, I understood what you were saying before.
Okay, all right. Well,
I was never confused.
It's like a 50-50, right? I'm also not going to completely outrule Metroid Prime 4 for holiday. That is more like my wishful thinking, but like, I'm okay with getting it 2 months later.
I don't think Prime 4 will be the holiday title, but I don't necessarily.
We used to think that though.
It has to be the holiday title.
Brandon, not that long ago, I think it was even the direct. You were like, I was watching my reaction. In the reaction, you're like, "Oh, this could be a launch title." What changed?
Yeah, I literally just said I didn't think it was going to be a holiday title.
Oh, I misheard you. I thought you meant launch title. Okay.
No, I think it will be very close. I just said earlier in the podcast, I think it'll be in the first 3 months.
All right. I mean, we're on the same page there. So,
yeah.
We're arguing.
I just think Mario Kart could come out. I think 3D Mario could launch and Mario Kart could come out a few months later. I think they'll both sell regardless.
Right. Of 3D Mario and Mario Kart, I would say Mario Kart, if you want to tell me that's not coming out till 2026, I wouldn't be totally shocked. But what do you put in that first year then, right?
I think both will release. I just think they could release pretty close together.
Yeah. When I think about Nintendo wanting to just hit the ground running, I think you need both. Especially if we don't have a new 3D Zelda.
Yeah.
Right. And it makes sense to have like that big hit, right? In the words of Miyamoto, a 30+ million seller kind of game in Mario Kart, and maybe 3D Mario this time can hit that mark too. Mario Odyssey didn't quite do it, but I think this next one might have that potential. Yeah. But you're holding out hope that we see the Ocarina Time remake for holiday 2025?
No.
Okay.
No. I was just saying it would be really cool if they did.
It would be.
Like, that'd be insane.
Like, I'd love to see it in the Switch 2 teaser.
I think it's 2026. But I do think we're gonna get. I mean, we have that listing for a possible Breath of the Wild remaster, and I do think that's very possible. And I think Tears of the Kingdom will definitely get some kind of graphics patch that will there'll be Zelda stuff on Switch 2 that will show off some capabilities, even if we don't see the full capabilities of maybe what it can do with the Ocarina of Time till the next year. But there's going to be Zelda stuff to do on Switch 2 to show it off, without that.
For sure. So let's transition to the ending Q&A for the night, guys. So final questions and super chats you want to put them out now. How long has this stream been going for? Oh my god.
It's not that long. 2.5
Just
hours.
2.5
But
hours.
it is a little bit longer than usual. Having Hope asks, how is Ruby? Can we see her if she's not sleeping? She's probably sleeping, but she's doing well. I am not opposed to getting her in a couple minutes before I close things, though. We'll see. But anyways, let's see here. Arnold asks me, I think Switch 2 is going to be something fans that we'll be hoping for. I hope you're right. Darcy here says, I'm also coping for a 2025 Monolith Soft game. Is it cope, though? I think it's reasonable.
That's pretty reasonable.
Let me just state the pattern again, because I think, I don't know, I've said it a few times, but I'm just going to say it again, maybe to give you a little hopium. Xenoblade Chronicles X came out in, I want to make sure I get my dates right, 2015. Big new game. 2016, Monolith Soft didn't release anything. 2017, big new game, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. 2018, big expansion, the DLC, Tour of the Golden Country. 2019, break year. 2020, big remaster, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. 2021, break year. 2022, big new game, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. 2023, big expansion in Future Redeemed. 2024, now the direct is passed. The theory has been somewhat confirmed. I mean, it pretty much is. Like, we pretty much know for a fact that Monolith Soft is taking a break year, right? Like who in their right mind thinks that there's going to be a surprise announcement for a new Monolith Soft game, like a Xenoblade 4 or something like that for this year? Pretty much no one, right? So it's not happening. 2024 is essentially confirmed to be a break year. And so the pattern would then suggest 2025, there will be a game. Now, is it conceivable that we have to wait until maybe sometime 2026? Yeah, it's conceivable. Delays can happen. But looking at the pattern, all signs point towards a 2025 release. Switch 2 is coming out next year, similar to 2017 when they made sure to get a new Xenoblade game to take advantage of that initial, push for a new console. This time, I think they're going to do the same thing. And this time, I think they're going to take even better advantage of it. They may have been prepping this for some time already. And I don't know. I don't think it's cope. I think it's hope, like a reasonable hope. I think it's a call it a prediction, But I don't want to 100% predict it because I could see it coming out 2026, especially if it's a really big game.
3 was, and sorry because you probably just said this recently, but I was having a conversation with my brother about something important. Is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 came out in 2022? Or 2023?
2022. The DLC came out in 2023.
Yeah. So they actually have a longer time between this, like 3 and this new game than they did between X and 2. Although they did do that DLC for 3, but still.
Yeah. The DLC came out actually faster than expected to. We thought it would come out post Tears of the Kingdom. It came out pre-Tears of the Kingdom. No one saw that coming. Or most people didn't see that coming. So, all signs show that they are ahead of the curve. Of course, next generation development, we shall see. But, we go back to how Switch 2 was supposedly going to come out 2024, right? And instead, they pushed it up a few months. Part of the reasoning has been suggested that it's to get the lineup ready. Maybe part of that lineup includes Monolith Soft's new game, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And if it's a new IP, they've been hiring for that since 2017. So in theory, they've actually been working on it for a really long time. And we do have this codename game that's legacy that does not match up to any other style of Xenoblade project from their codename. Right. So I think it supports the notion that something else from Monolith Soft is cooking and is maybe not that far off. So we'll see. Rico Lee asks, I saw a video from Nintendo Forecast talking about it, saying that Nintendo wants to have 30 million seller every few years. It's a big game to support everything, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I guess you posted it a while ago. I'm just getting to the chat now. Makes sense, though.
Yeah, we were talking about that before.
Yeah. RNL asking, how big will a 3D Zelda collection be if it does come out on the new console? I mean, if it's just kind of like 3D All Stars, I don't know. Like, it depends on the timing. I don't think you put out like basic remaster collections to hype up a new console. Like, would it sell because of
That'd be
Zelda?
something that would come on Switch 1 as well, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It would sell, but I don't think it would push hardware. No one would buy that buy a Switch 2 for unless they're like all remade, right? But I think asking for more than one remake at a time is
It's
like
kind
a
of
remake, not a basic remaster, a remake, right? Like it's different. Connor adds, I know you were thinking of Kirby's Epic Yarn coming to Switch in your video with the remasters. Yeah, like I think Nintendo could go back to some more 3DS games that have already been demade or remastered. Like they could do it again. The real J Stone asks me, it makes no sense to launch a Switch 2 Direct in this September when there will be a Nintendo Direct coming this September to finish off the remaining games for fiscal year 2024. I don't know about that.
It's not for certain, but it is kind of my thinking that they'll also they'll have a Switch.
I mean, like I guess it makes sense to still have a September Direct or some kind. All the games were dated in June, but they were last year, and there still was a September Direct. I just think we might get a mini, and also we've seen how Nintendo can, like, for example, look at Luigi's Mansion 2, or more specifically, look at Endless Ocean, look at Paper Mario, or actually mostly Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door. That game wasn't really featured in a Direct this year at all, right? Well, I mean, yes, it was a feature in a prior Directs, right? But not, or in the one Direct, right? It was showed off in the September Direct. And after that, they just released trailers on social media. And also looking at like the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, the amount of information they gave us in that one first trailer, like I almost feel like we don't need anything else but like, hey, this is, here it is. Here's another trailer. Here's an overview trailer.
There's still a lot of mechanics that we don't know about. I think they showed the biggest, most interesting mechanic, but I mean, if you look at like the little wheel, like shows the like your items, all you have is there's just one thing there, just the staff. Like clearly, there's other things that you're gonna be switched to other than just the staff.
Listen, I'm not saying there's not gonna be more news. I'm just saying that we don't need it in Direct. The game comes out in September already. Like, we're gonna get news on the game before then.
Yeah.
Like what we get in the Direct is going to be like a summary of what we already know.
Facts.
It's going to be basically like the Luigi's Mansion 2 trailer that we got in the Direct. Like, hey, yep, this exists. It's about to come out. Play it.
We do need another trailer for the game, though.
And that's going to come before September. Before there would be a Direct. Outside of a Direct. Anyway, Real J Stone, I understand your point. Right, like I don't know if you bunch up. I don't think you bunch a Switch 2 presentation and a general September Direct this same month. But I'm also not sure we're getting a general September Direct. I feel like it would be a mini. We already have the January game. I don't think you need to give us a lot of info for Echoes of Wisdom. Like what more is there to say? Especially if Switch 2 is coming out in March. So I'm not saying there is things to say. But I think you could maybe get that done with a Direct Mini or a series of social media announcements. So I'm personally not expecting a general Direct in September at this point. But I mean, I'm not saying I'm not 100% on it, right?
But I'm also not expecting a Direct Mini.
I'm trying to be fluid with my thinking here. Is my main point.
I'm not also expecting a Direct Mini and the Switch 2 reveal Direct in the same month, though.
Right. So I guess that's one of the reasons why, Brandon, you don't agree with September. You're like, hey, it's August or October outside of a Direct month.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I understand your points. But also, if there's not a September Direct, then there's not a September Direct. Well, there's an August Direct instead, and then there's a Switch 2 presentation in September.
That could work.
That would throw everyone for a loop, but it's not impossible. Yeah. Ronnie Fozzie, I got to this earlier. I got to some of these chats earlier. Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. Captain Doge. I'd recommend checking out Odin Fernandez's page on ArtStation, as he was a 3D artist on Samus Returns. You can see a bunch of awesome looking high poly models that they could maybe use in a potential remaster. That would be awesome. Retro Cheats adds me. I'm thinking there will be a Switch 1 September Direct, but it might be a mini Direct. Otherwise, they have to fill the Direct with mostly third party and nothing exciting for first party.
Which pretty much apparently would mean it would have to be a mini Direct, because they wouldn't do a full Direct with mostly third party stuff.
Yeah, having hope says I think a Direct mini could make sense. Yeah, I'm leaning Direct mini.
Pretty long. I think the last Direct mini was like 30 minutes or something. Like 25, 30 minutes. So they can be pretty long.
Yeah, it could be. Arnold, that's me. A new 3D Mario game could bring a lot of sales for the success for the Switch, and this game can get promotion for Mario Movie 2. Mario Movie 2 is coming out April 2026. So maybe they want the 3D Mario game to come out closer to that. Maybe it is safe for holiday. So maybe it is Mario Kart to be the Switch 2 launch title, you know? Or, I mean, either way, Mario Kart, both would get boosted by the sales by the movie, right? Like, getting out both before the movie, I think, is just a good idea. So, and who knows? Maybe there's like a Donkey Kong game that comes out after. And that sees a boost. Yeah. Anyway, let me check out one thing before I call it a night. Let me see if I can take a look at this. Oh, I also did say I would get Ruby. Let me see here. Getting hungry.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking something up here. Oh, there it is. So I was looking up what Captain Doge was recommending. I see. So I'll share them real quick here. These are Samus Return, like someone reworked the Samus Returns models. They look pretty detailed. Like,
yeah, wow.
This one looks kind of simple, but it would work. Like, if this is what a remastered model, you know, because it is after all a 3DS game, so that looks awesome. Dude, Diggernaut looks crazy.
Very detailed models. Those are probably more detailed than the models that are like.
This looks like a 3D like model.
This is like a model that would be made for like a Switch 2 game. It's a very, very high detail model.
Or for like, you know, like a model in your living room.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the planet.
Were those planets? I thought they were just material showcases.
It's a colored version of the ship. That's cool stuff. All right, let me see if I can get Ruby real quick. Brandon, say something interesting. I'll be right back.
Something interesting.
You know what I mean.
Let's read the chat. We just mentioned 2HD still has some Street Pass features. RNL. How would that even work? I don't know. I've never heard of that. Retro Treats just don't got any more hopes for Switch 1 games. I think that, I mean, there's going to be more Switch 1 games, though. There were 3DS games, and there were significant 3DS games. Some nice remasters. I think even some new games. But there were Nintendo published 3DS games all the way to 2019, so there will be more Switch 1 games. If they're not going to be the biggest efforts of Nintendo, but there will be more Switch 1 games for years.
You saw her for 3 seconds.
Yeah. Those 3 seconds were glorious.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I can get her attention again. I don't feel like getting up my chair, but she's looking at this. There she is. She's like, whoa, what's going on? Whoa. What are you doing with that? What is that ancient technology you're waggling? Oh, I don't care anymore. Oh, yeah, I do a little bit. She's just staring at it. She doesn't feel like attacking it.
Using the Wii mode as it's truly intended means.
Or as a waggler.
This is like it's like that 3DS Cats game, except the Wii version, but in real life.
10 cats. And 10 dogs.
Yeah,
and
10
cats.
cats.
Yeah. Anyways, I'll let Ruby be the end for the stream. Were you saying anything interesting, Brandon? I didn't hear your.
I was just reading chat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, stuff we had mostly just touched on before. So.
Cool. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for coming by. I enjoyed this stream with you all. Thank you for the likes and the congratulations and the chats and just having a good time with us. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.